phone, text him.
Yes. Yeah, phone's on silent.
Call the Broken Arrow City Council meeting to order. We have invocation by Pastor Scott Moore. It'll be the second time we get to hear you pray over us today.
Yeah, it'd be tough to beat the first one.
I don't know if that's good or not.
We'll see.
Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, we thank you for a beautiful day. We thank you for the opportunity to start off the day by remembering those who were lost in the Oklahoma City bombing. Father, we never want to forget the sacrifices that were made on that day. And Father, those sacrifices help us to also be grateful for what we have now. And Father, we are grateful to live in a wonderful community. We are grateful for leaders that not only do a wonderful job administratively, but they care about their community. And so, Father, we do thank you for those that are in leadership, both on the council and in city leadership as well. Father, we are also grateful to be able to come together and have input into the direction of the city as citizens. And so for every citizen that'll be a part of this particular meeting, we ask for your blessing on them as well. Help them to be able to share their ideas with clarity of thought and a good attitude and a spirit of cooperation. Father, we love you. And again, we are so grateful for where we live and that you are here with us always. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Roll call.
Ford.
Here.
Beatty.
Here.
Parks.
Here.
Gillespie.
Here.
Wimpy.
Please stand and join Vice Mayor Gillespie in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Attention, salute, pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Move to approve. Second.
With a motion and a second, roll call. Public hearings, appeals, presentation, recognition, and authorization to execute a proclamation declaring the week of May 1st, 2022 as Youth Week.
Scott. Let's turn Scott's off.
Hi.
My name is Trevor Finley, and I'm the president of the Antlers Youth Association. We are a youth organization sponsored by the Elks Lodge of Broken Arrow. And we have been collaborating with the Broken Arrow Youth City Council. And together we'd like to propose a proclamation by the city of Broken Arrow that the first week of May be considered Youth Week in the city of Broken Arrow. This would allow the city to celebrate Youth of Broken Arrow throughout the week. And it will help the kids of BA to know that they are an important part of our community. Now, I'd like to introduce Kayliana, the Vice President of the Antlers Association. She is going to discuss the proposed ideas and activities during the week.
Hi, I'm Kayliana Rayburn. I'm the Vice President #1 of the Antlers Association with the Elks Lodge. So the public events that we're doing for the Youth Week would be Monday nights would be Scouts Nights. It's where the Boy Scouts come together at the Elks Lodge and they provide s'mores and snacks around the campfire to get children of Broken Arrow involved and together. And then Wednesday nights would be our banquet. It is May the 4th. May you have an invitation as well. So this is where we are honoring the youth of Broken Arrow. Yes. And what was it?
Wednesday night or Tuesday night? Thursday.
It was Tuesday. That was Tuesday.
Tuesday is the games in the hall, which is the hall of the Elks Lodge. So this is a private or public? This is one of our public events where we will be providing games in the hall of the Elks Lodge and snacks as well as a bonding activity for the youth of Broken Arrow as well. And then Thursday nights, we will be having a bake-off with Antlers and the YCC.
Nice.
So we will be decorating cakes, and then we will be having a contest to see who designed the best cake. And the judges will be members of the lodge and the adults.
Do you need additional judges?
Yes, additional judges.
Of course.
Additional judges are always welcome.
Yep. Just one. Friday?
All right. Which one's Friday?
Movie night.
Yes, movie nights. So the movie night is Friday nights. We will be showing Bad Guys, the new animated film, at the New Orleans Theater in the New Orleans Square. And we are giving out free tickets to all the youth of Broken Arrow. And yeah, concessions are not free though. And that Saturday, which is the last day of the Youth Week, will be the 80s dance. It is, as the last activity of the week, we will be hosting a small themed party as, the last memorable event for the youth of Broken Arrow as well. And we will be providing snacks. There are projectors, and we will be showing a movie. And there will still be games as well. And those are our activities.
I'm Abigail Hardwick. I'm a counselor, part of the YCC, and I'm just here to say that this would be a great way for Broken Arrow, not only the youth to get involved, but local businesses and the rest of the population. We're going to be using New Orleans Theater for the Bake Off. We're having some local bakeries and businesses donate cakes, so if you want to come judge, you can always do that. So we're doing a lot of, it'll also be profitable for the city in the way of concessions and the local businesses. So it's a really great way to establish Broken Arrow and the youth in Broken Arrow as part of a new leadership tactic.
I like it.
I'm Madeline Hardwick. I'm her sister. I'm also in Youth City Council, and we have some flyers. Do you want me to give them to you right now? Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That includes our proposal.
Okay. Well, I will read the proclamation. Whereas the benevolent, why is that word always so hard? Benevolent. I practiced it even. Sorry. Whereas the benevolent and productive order of Elks in the city of Broken Arrow has designated May 1st through 7th as Youth Week to honor citizens for their accomplishments and to give fitting recognition state and nation. And whereas the city of Broken Arrow will sponsor an observation during that week in tribute to the junior citizens of this community. And whereas no event could be more deserving of our support and participation than one dedicated to these young people who represent the nation's greatest resource and who in the years ahead, which we alone can give in order to help develop the character essential for future leadership and go forth to serve America. And whereas to achieve this worthy objective, we should demonstrate our partnership with youth, our understanding of their hopes and aspirations, and a sincere willingness to help prepare them and everywhere for the responsibilities and opportunities of citizenship. Now, therefore, I, Deborah Wempe, Mayor of the City of Broken Arrow, do hereby proclaim the first week in May as Youth Week. We have a second. And we have a second. Roll call. Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Presentation of an annual report by Robbie Squires, Director, Government and Regulatory Affairs of Cox Communications, a cable service provider for a non-exclusive franchise with the City of Broken Arrow. Robbie?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Robbie Squires. I am Director of Government Affairs for Cox Communications. My colleague Tiffany Bruton is our Director of Public Affairs, and she's a native of Broken Arrow. So excited to have her here with me this evening. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and address the council. I want to say specifically a thank you for in the prayer calling out the memorial and the memory of the bombing. I had the pleasure of being with some of the families at the memorial earlier today. And so just knowing that across the state, people are thinking about that moment means a lot. So thank you for calling that out specifically. Well, Cox Communications has been a proud partner with the city of Broken Arrow for nearly 25 years. And many of you I've had the chance to meet, and we've shared the story of Cox Communications, but quickly I'll just remind you that we are a company that is still owned by the Cox family. So we're a privately held company. We have the 4th generation of the Cox family at the helm. We've been around for 125 years, so a little bit longer than the state of Oklahoma. And we have done a pretty remarkable job of traveling through the growth of the communications. I guess that's the best way to say it, starting with newspaper, then going to radio, to TV, cable, and then the internet. So we have a proud history of making sure that we are always on the forefront of communication and how it's delivered. You probably know us as the internet company, the cable company. You probably know us as Cox Business. We connect businesses all over the state. Cox Media, our targeted media and advertising group. But our umbrella company, Cox Enterprises, consists of several other things you probably know of. Kelley Blue Book is under our Cox Automotive umbrella. Mannheim Auto Auctions, the largest auto auction in the world. Auto Trader is one you probably remember. And here in Oklahoma, we recently just purchased Spears New Technology, which is a battery company that works to refurbish batteries for electric vehicles. So exciting to see that growth happening here in the state of Oklahoma as well. Our partnership with the city of Broken Arrow goes far beyond broadband and the connecting of the citizens. Cox has contributed over $1.3 million in and around the Broken Arrow and Tulsa metro areas over the last year in 2021. We are a proud partner with the Broken Arrow Performing Arts Center and have donated more than $30,000. We've been a major supporter of the Broken Arrow Chamber and Economic Development Corporation for more than a decade. We're proud to have given more than $115,000 since 2015. And 6 of our employees are proud Leadership Broken Arrow graduates. I think Tiffany's included in that, as a matter of fact. Cox Charities has granted nearly $90,000 in grants to Broken Arrow public schools and nonprofits over the past 5 years. And through Connect to Compete, our program that we founded in 2012, one of 2 cable companies to be at the forefront of recognizing that there was a digital divide in connecting students. Any home that had a student in K through 12, we said we've got to get them internet because they would be at a disadvantage if they don't have it. So we created a program that we could get them internet for less than $10 a month. And we have connected over 10,000 families in the Broken Arrow area. Also very important, football is very important to the community of Broken Arrow, I am told, and I know that. So we broadcast Broken Arrow games on our Cox Channel 3 in the fall. As a matter of fact, we broadcast, I think, a soccer game of Broken Arrows last Friday. But that gives, especially during the pandemic, it gave people the opportunity to see those games, even if they couldn't be there in person, or maybe they live in Oklahoma City, they're able to see those games as well. And we're excited to be able to partner from that standpoint as well. Now let's talk about broadband and the pandemic. Nothing has been talked about more in the last 2 years, I think, than connectivity and making sure that people can work and perform schoolwork at home. So when you talk about broadband, there's 2 specific issues that we have to address: affordability and availability. So first, let's talk affordability and adoption. So what that means is there's internet in front of a home or connected to a home, but for whatever reason, that person in that home is choosing not to subscribe. That may be for cost reasons. It may be for lack of understanding or not really sure why they would need the internet.
But as far as affordability, the program I mentioned, Connect to Compete, we have put a significant emphasis on that over the last 2 years. But on top of that, the federal government has established a program. It was originally the Broadband Benefit Program. It's now the Affordable Connectivity Program, which in Broken Arrow allows for a resident to get up to $75 toward their internet bill. So there's no longer an issue as to why internet wouldn't be affordable. If it's in front of your home, there are multiple programs now, either through Cox and our Connect Assist package, or the affordability program through the federal government, or Connect to Compete. Every home should be able to bring it inside the door at this point. So as far as availability, our nationwide network consists of over 200,000. It's a fiber-rich network of over 200,000 miles. Here in Broken Arrow, we announced over 5 years ago that we were going to be completely gig enabled. So every home that has Cox access has availability of gig speeds. And we've made a commitment already to begin the process of building 10 gig capability to every home. So what does that mean from a numbers perspective? Over the last 10 years, we've invested $16 billion in upgrades. That's not maintenance, that's not repair, that's just ensuring that the technology that the people need 10 years from now is already in place. That's what allowed our network to perform the way it did during the pandemic, when there was a shift to using the internet at home. Over the next 5 years, we've already committed another $10 billion to upgrading the infrastructure to ensure that far beyond what we can even imagine today, we're investing. Here in Broken Arrow specifically, we've invested in the last year $6.7 million in the infrastructure in Broken Arrow. So what we hear a lot of, and I know several of you were at a conference in DC just a few weeks ago, and President Biden has begun speaking pretty heavily about the idea of government-owned networks. And they've given a lot of money through ARPA. The problem is with the plan, they've failed to come up with a plan for how you maintain a network. So one-time capital funds are just the tiniest piece of the puzzle. As you can see from the investment we make year after year after year, and companies just like us all over the state. Once you put it in the ground, you immediately have to upgrade it. About every 2 years, the technology needs more. So just want to make sure that I highlight that, just the cost and the expense and the expertise required to ensure that a network is truly capable for generations to come. And we certainly have made that commitment time and time again, and we ensure that we will have that same commitment with the city of Broken Arrow for years and years to come. So, thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you for all you guys you do for us. You're a great community partner.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Do you guys have any questions or discussion? Nope.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Good job. Item 7C, presentation on the street closure of a portion of 23rd County Line from just north of Quail Hollow Apartments Drive to the south side of Albany Street for May 16th, 2022, from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. for high school graduation. Where our baby will be graduating, and I'm super sad. Sorry. Just had to add that.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, Mr. Spurgeon. Kenny Schwab, Assistant City Manager over Operations. So the item for you tonight is for your notification as well as the public's notification. There will be a brief presentation put on by the Broken Arrow Public Schools. And I'll call Mr. Blackburn and Mr. Martin up in just a second. But before I do, I just want to kind of introduce it to you. So first, I believe it's first week of April, Broken Arrow Public Schools submitted a special event application. And in that process, or in that application, they asked for a portion of County Line, 23rd Street, to be closed immediately on the east side of the high school football stadium. Mr. Spurgeon asked for the Traffic Advisory Committee to take a look at that. The authority to close streets by ordinance does fall to the city manager. And a few years ago, he created the Traffic Advisory Committee to provide advice and recommendations. That committee consists of police, engineering, traffic, legal, community development, and the city manager's office. So on April the 8th, we met with Broken Arrow Public Schools. They actually went through the presentation with us. It was a very good, well thought out plan. Probably took about an hour and 15, an hour and 20 minutes to go back and forth and try to modify and improve the best we can. So after hearing that, the recommendation from the committee to the city manager was, in fact, go ahead and close the street for that time period that's identified. And Mr. Spurgeon has already closed it. So again, tonight, it's really for your notification and the public's notification. So at this time, I'd like to call up Mr. Blackburn and Mr. Martin to make the presentation to you.
Good evening. I'm Derek Blackburn, Executive Director of Student Services. As you may have experienced anytime you've gone out to Broken Arrow High School and maybe to a football event, et cetera, it can be very difficult in regards to traffic. That being said, with graduation, typically we have held it at BOK Center, and it's been able to handle our people. But due to COVID, we were able to move it to the stadium in order to actually hold a graduation. At that time, we did limit the number of individuals that were coming. Our patrons loved the fact that we had graduation at the high school so much that we decided to go ahead and move forward with that last year. With that, we also expanded the number of family members that could attend. And if anybody was in attendance last year, the number of individuals, could you bring up that picture real quick again? The number of individuals, although we do not control the property to the east of us or to the north of us, patrons were parking in those areas and crossing 5 lanes of traffic, which was extremely unsafe and caused a major issue in regards to traffic backing up. We try to start the graduation procedures promptly. However, the number of individuals that were still waiting in line forced us to open up the gates and just allow people to come in at will. That too caused some additional issues. So as we were reviewing the possibility for this year, we were happy to present this to the city and their willingness to at least listen to us in regards to the safety concerns and just the overall headaches that come with trying to park the number of people that we're looking at, which we are expecting over 10,000 to be in attendance and probably more than that. We have 1,300 students that are scheduled to graduate. Of course, they will be on the field. Have at least 8 tickets per student. That adds up fairly quickly. And as you already know, the tickets are more of a suggestion. But as they come, we're not going to turn away grandma and grandpa if they want to come see their grandchild graduate. So in trying to manage that, we've tried to come up with a plan that not only will we do a better job of trying to park patrons and get them off property as soon as possible. We felt like doing the plans that you're getting ready to see would actually make the event more, safer overall. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Martin in regards to the overall plan. And if you have any questions of us, we're at your mercy.
Good evening. This is the map that you have of the overall campus of Broken Arrow High School. Kind of just give everybody a brief view of where we're talking about and what we have off 23rd Street, just to the north of Quail Hollow entrance to make sure that they have full access into the property. They've got a north entrance that they have, but this will also give them their entrance that they have there on the west side going in there. We would block it off at 61st Street. It gives us a safety zone in there because the intentions that we would have is to shuttle our graduates over to the campus. We would have them parking over at Vanguard Academy. This is one of the initial plans. It's still fluid. We're still trying to make sure that we have all the pieces together for the necessary parking spots. But this way we would allow our shuttle buses into that safety zone to offload the students. They would then go onto the campus and go to their staging areas. Taking the students parking off the campus now gives us grandma and grandpa's parking, and we get their parents parking. By removing them, it gives more space available to us. When we come on campus, we have about 230 unconventional parking spaces that we can make that are not lined spots, but we can actually put vehicles into the grassy area by the varsity training center that's there on the map, just south of the football stadium. And we have the loop in front of the school that we can actually park them to the exterior and still allow a lane of traffic to the interior. And we have a couple other locations that we're toying with to be able to give us the additional spaces. This is just giving us more space available so we can get people in. If we go to the next slide, please. And the next one. That slide that was before, the idea that we would have the electronic signage a week in advance going down 23rd Street from the north of 61st Street near 71st Street to the east near 209, that 23rd Street will be blocked off from 4 to 11:30 on Monday, May 16th for graduation. There that travels that on a regular basis, advance notice, that roadway will be blocked off and there won't be any access in. Speaking with the police department on that, they had made recommendations on the number of officers that they would need to block the street. On the map, you can see got a couple little police cars there by the barricades. They would be there, and to the east at Vanguard Academy, they recommended having somebody there to allow the shuttle buses out onto the roadway unhindered. I have the buses coming from there. They would move the barricades to the side, allow the bus in, allow them to drop off the students, and then pick up the next group of students coming in. The three entrances to the high school campus, two entrances on Albany, and then the one entrance just south of the stadium and the varsity training center that leads there. That's all the entrances that we have. So the intentions that we're going to plan on doing is utilizing either our JROTC or other volunteers that we have established to actually be parking guides. If anybody's been to Silver Dollar City, this is what we kind of plan on doing, that they will park them individually. They will direct them to where the parking's at, and here is your parking space. We can control those spaces instead of people driving in. And what we found from the previous times with the graduation is people would just drive and the lot's full and they keep on driving through and it would back up traffic out onto Albany and onto 23rd Street. So with us having people directing them into spots, we can control that a little bit better, and it'll give us an idea when we're full. When we're full, we will have people there that we're parking them, pointing everybody to the back of the campus, because that's where the major parking will be, and that's the last vestige that we have. Identifying we're at the last bit available, we'll then shut off all entrance into the campus. We will still allow people to drop off for the stadium, but they don't intend on parking there, but then they'll be directed right on off the campus to find alternate parking. We do have Creekwood Early Childhood Center and Creekwood Elementary that's in walking distance to the campus that they can also park in there, and we have 206 parking spots there. It has been used in the past. It's been used for the large event football parking there. But those are the only the real within walking distance locations that we have available. But this way we can shut things at the campus and not keep the congestion that we were getting on Albany and 23rd Street. That's primarily we have. If you go to the next, the intentions are then at the end of the ceremony that here's the exits. We would have people there giving them some direction. And for that one time and one time only for the graduation, we would open up the secret gate at the back of the campus and allow them out into the neighborhood to be able to go out 23rd Street. They could go back towards Lynn Lane, but most everybody will go out to 23rd Street. Secret so we will have that available to them. We'll have people directing traffic at the two entrance exits at Albany on the north side of the campus, and on the 23rd Street side, we'll have a it'll be a type situation, and we, just like at the end of school, we'll put the cones out and give a protected right-hand turn. Everybody will just have a free flow to keep on going, and the quicker that we can move them off, the quicker that people aren't sitting for more than 30 minutes in the back of the school like Mr. Schwab was last year. So it hopefully will get them off campus a little bit quicker in a little bit more orderly manner. And that's all we're trying to do, is trying to organize the chaos just a little bit, because it is going to be chaos. We recognize that. You know, over 10,000 people at that one site. But hopefully we'll have that. We still have that protective zone actually shut down during that entire time, because it allows us better control of the street and when people are leaving. And this way we will then pick up the students that we dropped off and take them, and it allows, again, a little bit more control. That's pretty much it. That's what we have planned. Again, we're trying to find out how we can squeeze as many vehicles into the campus as possible. But with your allowing us to shut that down, it does allow that area a lot better and gives us a lot more traffic flow capabilities that we wouldn't have had otherwise.
So we only need to find 8,000 more parking spots.
Because I do believe pretty much everybody brings at least 2 vehicles there. If they would just carpool or.
Yeah, we will definitely suggest that for sure.
Absolutely. And we will be, as a result of this, we will also be pushing out through the school district, pushing out information to local media and to all the resources that the school district has on what's expected. We will have maps up there for them, showing them the traffic flow, what they could do to help themselves and to help us in the meantime. And that will be going out after this meeting here. This way they've got this as a informational, and they'll be start getting that from the school district itself and through all our media sources from that.
Possibly look at like a shuttle, like say Battle Creek parking lots, and shuttle pick up and shuttle.
We are not shuttling adults. We have a restriction with the schools on how we can actually do that, because that was one of the first things that we thought of. Let's grab some of these other locations and shuttle the adults, but we don't have that ability with what we have right now. That may be something that we would have to look to in the future.
Sure.
If we'll see how this works, and we will have our
We have
after
until
action
May 16th.
just to look at it too, because there's a lot of places that have
Sure.
availability in large parking areas that would be available if we had shuttles that we could take adults to, and whether they would choose to utilize.
Jeff, with the lots across the street where the street's closed off,
Yes.
I know that they can't have access because the street's closed off, but it looks like they could still have access to park on that grass. Is that a possibility for people?
We've got a couple different things that we're looking at with that. One is putting up the construction fencing right there, and or utilizing our own staff to be that first row, so nobody would be able to pull out onto, because that is utilized during football also. It just scares me to death when I watch people crossing the road, not utilizing the crosswalk that is available by walking all the way up to Albany and that. But we're either fencing, and we're contacting the owners of that land. Mr. Schwab was able to get us who actually owns that land, and it's not Quail Hollow, to be able to, again, put some construction fencing up, and or we'll put our vehicles out there and park staff there so it won't be utilized by others. They may park behind it, they just won't be able to pull out onto the roadway.
Yeah, were you asking if we could utilize it?
Well, I was just kind of concerned about, because I think people will figure out a way to get up there for sure. So
Well, they do,
yeah.
they jump that curve where they come in through Quail Hollow
Yeah.
area and that, so.
Let me just say that we can't, since we haven't talked to the owner, we can't direct them to park there right now.
Yeah.
Everything they've done has been on their own. So therefore, if the owner wanted to come and have cars towed, that'd be totally up to them.
Yeah.
The other thing that we're not talking about, which I'm praying won't be an issue, is weather. Obviously, if it rains, then that's going to be even more problematic. But the fencing is really, so if cars do park there, that they don't pop the curb into that
Yeah, that was my
that
concern.
zone and then have to go a different direction.
Had there been any thought of shuttling the graduates in from the PAC and allowing folks to park at Vanguard too? Because it's about the same distance walk from Vanguard as it would be from the grade school.
Creekwood. Yeah.
It is, there's curbing, I mean, there's sidewalks from Creekwood.
Oh, there's no.
There isn't anything from Vanguard.
Okay. That
Can
makes
we get sidewalks by?
People
Not there
park
yet.
up and down
Someone
Albany
that the
in
city ought to
that
think
area
about that.
anyways, and we're just walking from there. But since there's not any sidewalks there, we were trying to avoid that. But that is one of the things that we were looking at too. But since with no sidewalks, we
But I
don't
was just
want to
thinking,
encourage-
if you're shuttling the kids anyway,
Right,
shuttling them
right,
from the
shuttle a little bit
PAC or
further.
somewhere, would-
Yeah.
Absolutely.
and then you'd
Yeah.
have more parking.
Absolutely.
That makes sense if it's not pedestrian friendly.
And
Is
this-
graduation live this year? Will it be
Yes,
shown
they will be
live?
streaming it also. And there have been people that had younger or older siblings that graduated before and said, they're just going to go ahead and watch it online, which
Well,
I'm all for the comfort of the home and
the thought of
the
that
easy
many
chair to
people
be
in
able
one
to watch it.
place, if it was my son, I'd say, listen, I'll see you when it's over. Go have fun.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah, I might.
So for us, it'll be interesting to see. We've got new plans for entry into the stadium that we hadn't utilized before. Some of our band people with the large crowds they deal with have given us some ideas on how to get more people in those 4 entrances by having a standoff and having people checked before they get to that point so they can get in. So we're not just opening up the gates. We didn't want to do that then, but we also knew that the start time was a hard time that was going to occur. And there was no way the people that were still in line down by the tennis courts were going to make it up there. They might make it by the time their child's name was answered. So we said, no, we'll find a different way to get people in and make sure that we've got a good experience for everybody.
I love that you're doing it at the high school and open. When I was on the school board at Union, we did that as well. And I know how much the VOK costs. So I'm glad that it's going to be able to work out, even though it may be a little, you're going to be patient, but I think that's
You have
going
to
to
be
be good
patient. You have to wonder about the weather.
Yeah.
But it was amazing how many of the kids,
Love it.
I want to graduate from
Yep.
from
Mhm.
Yeah.
a football
it
stadium.
gives
That's
it
where I
that small
want to go
town
to.
feel that-
It's-
Yeah.
It
I
does.
think having at the high school is amazing because, I mean, I would think this is a lot more work on you guys. I don't know.
Oh, it
but
is.
I would assume it is.
It is.
And so and gals that are,
Mhm.
but it's just, there's something about, I mean, we still seem to perpetuate that small town feel with the huge high
Absolutely.
school, and I appreciate that so much.
I would say that there's not a lot of savings in regards to having it because of the amount of stuff that we have to rent and the people that we have to hire to try to help supervise. So it really came down to the fact that our kids enjoyed that and that experience and wanted to do it again. So we're just trying to figure out how to do it in a safer manner.
Yeah. Do they stay there for Project Grad right after, or are they able to, do they leave and come back still?
Not
Oh,
project graduation at the high school
Okay.
immediately after that. So it does, that's part of the reason I'm trying to have the organization of them leaving a little bit better, because right after that, we're getting a whole group of people coming in for project graduation. And we'll go from 11 until 2 in the morning. So we've got that competing group leaving and coming at the same time. So
and
we're
I've worked
trying to
that
get
many,
those.
many times. And it seems like it was longer than that. Was
Yeah,
it?
I
Okay?
said
It,
to the
it used to
morning.
go till 6 in the morning. and
That
they
all
moved
night,
it to
I know.
4, and now they moved it
Okay.
to 2, because a lot of the kids, it's an amazing thing. They'll go curl up in a corner at 2 or 3 in the morning, and they're not participating in any of the stuff that's going on. They're tired, and they're
Yeah.
worn out, and they really want to go home.
You'd think as young as they are, they would go, but it became more of an issue of trying to hold on to kids
Yes.
and keep
Yeah.
them contained, then it became a game. Let's try to escape. So we found a happy medium that seems to work to still provide them a safe night so that they can enjoy being around each other and events that they can do with the whole goal, which actually Ms. Wimpy and myself were one of the first years that we did project graduation in Broken Arrow, was to keep them off the streets and doing things that were unsafe and just giving them a safe place.
Yeah.
So again, we appreciate the city's willingness to work with us on this, and we're hopeful that it goes successful. And if we need to tweak some things for next year, obviously we'll do that as well.
And they won't get in trouble for driving after. curfew.
It's a school function, so they'll be
Oh,
okay. As long as they go from school to
To
home,
home.
they'll be
Okay.
okay.
Yes.
So again, this was just for your notification and the public's. We will help them get the message out. It's their graduation, it's their event, but it is our street closure. So we have 3 of the digital message boards. We will work with the school to get that message out probably about a week ahead of time. And Aaron McCullough will be working with their PIO too to try to help that. So again, just notification. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
Yeah,
you.
thank
Jeff.
you.
All right, item 7D, presentation regarding New Orleans Square, West New Orleans Street and Elm Place intersection and streetscapes improvements. Kenny Schwab. And Travis.
Yes, so very exciting. About 9 or 10 months ago, council made a decision on the New Orleans Square, the intersection, and immediately we finished out the report and went right into the construction plans. At that meeting, we indicated that we wanted to be at a point where we could advertise the improvements by April of 2022. We made it today. It's on the street. This is advertised, just as the public wanted. They voted in the improvements, GO bond money to make improvements at this location. So a lot of challenges in front of us, but what I want to do is bring Travis up and let him give a quick, brief presentation on everybody else.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, Travis Small, Engineering Construction Department. We're really pleased to come to you tonight and present to you the updates to the New Orleans and Elm intersection project. As Kenny stated, the project did advertise this morning. Lots of hard work by both the Engineering Construction Department and the consultant, Kimberly Horn, but we got it posted today. So it's really makes us very happy that it is up. As we met last week and discussed this, today it advertised. The intent is to bring it back May 17th to award here at Council. And we're looking at being in construction June 1st. Reason why we're trying to shoot for that is we want to utilize as much of the summer as possible to get as much construction. Approximately 180 days. That's going to be pushing very hard on the contractor to try to get the roadway, which we're going to be constructing within the new roadway. So we're going to be building new curbs and new roadway within the existing roadway. That's going to take approximately 180 days. We're looking at the end of November before that's complete. And then we'll move outside the curb line to do the construction outside. That'll take another approximately 120 days. So we're looking at about 300 days total for the project, but substantially complete for the this is the project footprint. I know there was a question last week with respect to the approximate extents of the project. What you see here is highlighted. The blue is the area that will be fully reconstructed with concrete, decorative concrete intersection. Outside of that are areas that are lighter gray. That is the mill and overlay construction for the asphalt. So those are the approximate limits. Now, the actual project will extend further north and south where we're replacing the water line for about 2,400 linear feet of water line. So the full extent of the project extends further north and south. The project will include traffic signal replacement, new street lighting, gateways, both a larger and a smaller scale gateway along the sides of the road and in the medians, hardscaping, landscaping, irrigation, and as I stated, 2,400 linear feet of water line.
Can I ask a question on that slide?
Sure.
Just because I'll forget if
Sure.
we don't. I won't forget, but since we can see it. So the shop front area, I thought all of it was supposed to be 10 foot, like the 10-foot sidewalks.
So there will be a 10-foot trail along the south side of New Orleans, and that will run east and west. There will be 5-foot sidewalks everywhere else. So on the north side of New Orleans, we'll have a 5-foot sidewalk. And on the east and west side of Elm, we will have a 5-foot sidewalk. There will be a 10-foot trail that will be continuous on the south side. Now, we will have to tie that in the future with to the projects the east and west of there.
Okay.
But there will be a 10-foot trail constructed as part of this project.
Because the concept is to connect the bike/walking trail that exists north-south on the other side of the Freshman Academy can be a part of this project.
Absolutely, that
I
is
just thought
correct.
the overlay had, I mean, we don't have to talk about it all right now. I mean, maybe we do. The overlay I thought had a 10-foot, like the shop front over part of the overlay, which is those four corners, I just looked it up, shows primary street, sidewalk, minimum 10 feet. So is that not right?
That is correct, is that that's as the project develops. And so when new development goes in the sense of the new buildings and things, they will be required to bring those up to the 10-foot size requirements.
Okay. So we're building, I'm super excited, but I thought I was getting my 10-foot sidewalks, not my box, and then going back and adding 5 more feet later, but that's just me. Okay, sorry.
That's quite all right.
Continue.
Next slide. As I stated, the interior of the intersection from curb return to curb return essentially is going to be a decorative concrete reconstruction. So it's going to be full depth. From the crosswalks in will all be some kind of a decorative concrete or pavers. Outside of the crosswalks will be plain concrete to extend out. And one of the reasons we did that was to try to take into account the asphalt track out that you have in this type of construction, since we do have asphalt outside the concrete area. And we wanted to allow some plain concrete in that area so that way when they run those vehicles over there, the asphalt will track on the plain concrete as opposed to the decorative concrete. The one thing I would like to point out, it's hard to see in this graphic, but the outside of the crosswalks, the pavers will have etched into it the names of the streets. So you'll have that. You see here 2 different color schemes that have been selected and presented by the consulting firm. The cool tone concept on the upper right-hand side and the lower right-hand side, the warm tone concept. These color schemes can be chosen after we bid the project and award it. But those are 2 of the options that we can look at. There's benefits and there are pluses and minuses to both of those. Let's see, as I stated, the plain concrete outside of the crosswalks to take care of some of that issue with the asphalt track out. These are the concepts that have been put together for the gateways. The lower left-hand corner that you see there is the larger gateway, which would be placed in the medians on the south and the west approaches. The reason for that is because those are the entryways kind of into the city proper. So we decided that it would be a good idea to have the larger there. The smaller one on the right would be placed at on the sides of all 4 approaches. So you'd have that on all 4 directions, both sides of the road. Are going to be included in the project. There's the two different color schemes that you see, and those are focusing in at one of the crosswalks and ramps. So you can kind of see what it's going to look like. On the right, you see the different types of amenities that we're going to be adding, the light poles and fixtures, the benches, and the planters. Next slide, please. These are some of the concepts with respect to landscaping. The plans include quite a bit of landscaping in the medians and along the edges of the road, some trees, shrubbery, you name it. They also try to select different types of plantings that will not need a tremendous amount of water and are very hardy plantings for the traffic. Next slide. Construction. Here starts presenting some of the challenges with this particular project. As we get into construction, the type of intersection that we're building here, this decorative concrete intersection, it really kind of limits ourselves with respect to how we can phase this. Because you have to have the joints down the center of the intersection, we have to build this in quadrants. And so the best option for this would be going the quadrant construction where you have 1 lane open each direction for both Elm and for New Orleans. We can look at other options, but that would require either a full shutdown of the intersection or a partial shutdown of the intersection. And I know that can have its challenges with respect to traffic and also the businesses in that area. Construction hours, we've looked at some opportunities with respect to extending the construction hours that we normally have in our projects, which is usually 7 to 7. We've decided that we would like to extend that to 6 to 10, at least for the initial stages, and then discuss it with the contractor to see if there's a possibility of going 24-hour construction to speed it up. One of the problems we saw with that previously in discussing with contractors is the fact that they just don't have the staff to do it, and they can't keep their workers continuously working throughout the project. So next slide. Again, some more of the challenges with respect to the project. No left-hand turns. With this type of construction, having a single lane each direction, we're going to have to limit left-hand turns. So when you get to the intersection, there's not going to be a left-hand turn availability there. And that's going to be challenging, I'm sure, to the public and to the transportation needs of the citizens. The block party, which is scheduled for July 1st. As I said, we're going to start construction June 1st. So we'll be into construction at that point. We'll have some concerns with traffic congestion and also people walking through the construction zone. I mentioned the asphalt track out, traffic in general, and then school traffic. As I said, this is going to be about approximately 180 days for substantial completion of the roadway itself, which means it's going to trickle over into the school year. And certainly we've had some discussions with the schools. And we have another meeting set up this Friday to discuss that even further with the schools. So we're reaching out to them right now. And then the holiday seasons that are coming up, July 4th, as we mentioned already, trying to get it done before Thanksgiving. It's going to be right about that time. And then Christmas coming up. We don't want to affect the shopping season. And I'll take any questions you might have.
That was really the only question I have. And y'all, I don't want to sound like I'm negative Nancy on that because I just had it in my head. So, but it's, y'all, this is amazing.
We can take a look at.
Is the reason for the delay funding? I mean, for inputting the 5 and the 10 and the 5 instead of 10, is it funding of this? Is that how we're going to meet the budget, or is there some reason behind it?
It actually is a part of the overlay district, if I may, is that the overlay district provides that new construction have a variable set distance for the building. And so if we were to put the 10-foot building in, we'd be setting where that building would be going. And so therefore, because that building can move back and forth by the overlay district, say they want to have more space for seating, outdoor seating or things along those lines. And so we want to have the flexibility for the development that comes to have that. So if they're going to be moving back, then they'll add the additional 5 feet at that time. It's just nothing's here yet. And that's why.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's coming
It is.
with development though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, and I know in our meetings, at least the one that I sit in, we did discuss mitigation of how to protect the construction area so that we can still make the July 1st event a success and ways to keep that from happening. So when you say it's a challenge, it's not an insurmountable challenge, just one that has unique creative solutions that we get to do, correct?
Absolutely. One of the things that we will have is a mandatory pre-bid meeting where we will let all the contractors that are prospective bidders know what our plans are with respect to that event on July 1st. And make them aware of it right up front so that we can tell them, okay, this is our plan. We're going to shut you down a day or two before the event, so that way you can get the project area cleaned up and cordoned off, and we can attack it that way.
And because it's not unlike what we did when we were updating the Rose District and we had parades come through. We were able to accommodate both. It had its challenges, but we overcame them. So it can be dealt with here as well.
Challenges and opportunities.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We've already started to look at that, and we've got some good ideas where we can handle that.
I think all of it is just about communication and people are very, very supportive of these changes. I mean, the citizens are in general of these changes. So it's just about communicating, like plan ahead, get there early, plan to walk, and it's no matter what, they're going to have to walk probably from somewhere. So it's just planning ahead enough and us maybe talking to other places that we can get, that would let us park in their parking lots and things.
And I believe now the merchants are meeting like once a month.
Mhm.
We will attend those meetings. We're actually scheduled to go in May before we open, and we'll continue throughout the construction just to continue to update them.
Well, and I think a key item here, and I know that it was discussed in my meeting, I'm sure it's discussed in everyone else's because it's so important, is the goal and the plan why we're moving so quickly is so that we can have this done prior to the holiday, the Christmas holiday shopping. And based on this timeline, God willing, and the creek don't rise, we'll be able to get it done. So I think, that's the key item is we're being sensitive to the needs of the shop owners there, as well as making sure we have this great new addition.
The two biggest driving factors for the schedule were we wanted to maximize the summer months when the schools are out because the traffic volume is lower. And then exactly what you said, try to get complete by holiday season.
Just real quick, Mayor, members of council, I want to thank Kenny, Ethan, and Travis, and everyone in engineering construction, as well as a consultant, for moving so quickly to meet the expectation council had so we could bid this. And secondly is that I made it very clear, and I appreciate the questions tonight, to Kenny and to Larry, that we're going to have an amazing event for the block party, so they need to figure it out.
Well, and we did discuss it in detail. I mean, we discussed options, whether it's cyclone fencing around the, there's ways to make this happen so that it can be just as wonderful as it was last year and still allow us to keep this thing moving.
It's going to be so amazing because the fireworks are going to be bigger and better. We're going to have live music. We're going to have all kinds of things to do. Is that no one's going to notice the construction?
That's right. That's right. I'm so proud of what we have done with this. It just makes me so proud of our team here at the city. And you guys, you've done, gals, I am a gal and I always say guys, so just know what I mean. Just know that I'm just so excited, and I know all of us are, but this is very cool stuff. And a lot of people said that, some people said, why would anybody come to New Orleans Square? But why would you not? We got pretty good stuff going on there. So.
One big positive out of this is the parents may force their kids to ride the school bus to the 9th grade center now.
That's right.
Like in the old days.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Item 8 is citizens' opportunity to address the council on general topics. We have one item. Lou? I was going to try to say your last name, but.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak tonight. My name is Lou Balabanov, and I work as a public human voice advocate for international and local families here. And I'm here to talk about Card Head Start, located at 509 West Houston and Broken Arrow. The reason is because Mr. Alam at 81st in Elm owns a dispensary there, and he has been denied to renew his permit because the evaluation had said he was within 1,000 feet of a childcare facility. But as of February 24th of this year, Oklahoma has approved that they are no longer part of the school system. So because it's also provided by Sooner Care, they provide the services to the public, but Sooner Care also provides up to $100 to all my patients to receive their licenses. That includes their child caregivers who provide gummies to children who have like epilepsy or seizures. And that's the same that happened to Ms. Dunham, who was from Durant, Oklahoma, who had her child taken away by DHS, but the judge approved her to receive her child back because the doctor had approved 2 medications already out of Oklahoma City who are being prescribed to pediatricians. Sometimes, sorry, I speak several languages. Sometimes I get a little nervous. And so I wanted to just bring up to you guys that some of the card patients that I've spoken to, they actually have children who have seizures, and they are allowing them to provide gummies or medications coming out of Oklahoma City, doctors who have approved it. And Mr. Hemp or Mr. Alam has been in the business for 12 years. He initially started as a gas station. So he's provided for his family for 12 years. And as the development and as Broken Arrow City updates and changes its ordinance, as he did also provided other items to clients throughout Broken Arrow City. And as I observed several days, because we have shut the business down because it isn't, even though he has a business license, he doesn't have a permit to sell. And that's technically it's a pharmacy is what I'm saying. So if somebody at a card program, if a family delivered their child there and they're having a seizure and they're out of luck because Mr. Hemp is no longer there right at the corner to go get these gummies to calm down this person. I mean, after speaking to the judge in Durant, he cannot comment on Ms. Dunham's case, but fortunately she got her child back. The child does have a minor patient license and they are now back as a family together. Child care facilities by government is actually, when they file their paperwork in Texas, is considered like a regular home daycare, which is no longer part of the community that should deny Mr. Alam his permit to continue business. Most of his patients are PTSD. I was there when elderly came through to get their medication because they can't sleep at night. We can't deny our Mr. Hemp to be a pharmacy to local patients for the past 2 or 3 years that this has been allowed.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. We can't take any action since it's not an agenda item, but thank you for bringing
Okay, and
your
how long will the
concerns.
process be like to receive an answer or get?
I'd be happy to look into this and provide information back,
Okay.
Make sure Larry has your contact information, so.
which I
We've
do
got it
from
on
the
there.
sheet.
It's on
Great,
the sheet.
then
Yeah,
we'll
I
we'll
got
make
it.
sure.
Yes, thank you so
And it
much.
has your cell phone and
Yes, if
an
you guys
email
have any
address.
questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to provide witnesses or statements from any clients or services provided with both programs.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And you did a great job. I only speak one language and I get nervous.
Thank you very much.
Item 9, general council business. 9A, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of 2 appointments to the Senior Citizen Services Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Good evening again. As you know, last month, the city council approved the creation of a senior citizens advisory committee, which consists of 9 members, with 5 of those members being appointment by the city council, 2 by the senior board, and then 2 by the city manager. And when I made this presentation, I asked to have 2 appointments because I wanted to involve our young professionals, number one, and secondly, at least one person that has experience with actually working with seniors on a day-to-day basis. And the 2 names that were submitted to me or actually reached out to me is Kaylee Snyder, who works with Broken Arrow Neighbors, who has a great deal of experience working with our seniors, and then Shondell Bennett, who has approximately 20 years of experience in working with seniors and in the senior living setting. Our mother actually was a longtime member of the senior center, is very familiar with those activities. And so I think they'd be 2 great additions to the newly formed committee, which their first meeting coincidentally is scheduled for April 26th. We have an agenda set. As I mentioned earlier, Curtis Green is going to be spearheading that initiative. And I think we've got a great first agenda with outlining the goals and objectives, as well as discussing the plan of work or program of work and the timing and the selection of a chairperson, vice chairperson to spearhead that. So I'd ask council's consideration of adding Kaylee Snyder and Shondell Bennett to the committee.
I haven't met Shondell, but I have met Kaylee, and I know she most definitely would be a great asset.
I'd make a motion that we approve the 2 appointments to the Senior Citizen Services Advisory Committee.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. Item 9B, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of Resolution 1457, a resolution authorizing the city legal department to file an action in district court to obtain a decree ordering the abatement of a public nuisance regarding property located at 217 West College Street, Broken Arrow. Trevor Dennis.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Resolution number 1457 before you is a request to authorize the legal department to go forward with the district court action, have the property at 217 West College Street to be declared a public nuisance so that we can go forward with an abatement proceeding. We previously provided notice to the homeowner at this location that their home was in disrepair. There was exposed rotted wood, holes in the exterior walls. It's a danger. And so we've sent notice to the homeowner. We'd had a public hearing. Unfortunately, they've not taken any action based upon that. So this is the next step in our process. Happy to answer any questions that you have. We request that you approve resolution number 1457.
Are there any questions?
Make a motion to approve resolution number 1457.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Roll call. Item 9C, consideration, discussion, and possible changes to Broken Arrow Ordinance Section 10.3, fireworks. Chief Berryhill.
Hi, good evening, City Council, Mayor, Mr. Major. Brandon Berryhill, Chief of Police. After last year, city staff was directed to conduct a study of the current ordinance. We got together some of the background on this particular ordinance. It was passed back in '04. It's been gone through numerous different changes through City Council in '05, '07, 10. Some of the changes are listed in here. One of the most notable ones is a change for 60 feet from the front door of the occupancy. That speaks to having to make sure the permit is for the place where the fireworks is being used, not down the road or across the street or in a parking lot. Back in '05, a phone survey was conducted for 106 responses, approximately 64 for and against. And back in '06, an actual general election was held. Again, it was about 60-40, 14-7, 95 for, and 8,985 against. We met with members from legal, sustainability manager, police and fire, looked at the current ordinances. Two of the things we looked at were reducing the citation fee and requirement for an extinguishing agent to be readily available that was not previously mandated in the ordinance itself. I have a short PowerPoint presentation. If we can go to So slide 2, please. Again, this goes through the history of the ordinance itself, being amended in 7, 8, 08, again, 09, and 2010. Next slide, please. Instead of putting the whole ordinance in here, I'm only putting the highlighted change to make sure that the fireworks are being used near the proximity where the permit was issued. One of the new recommendations is item number 5, to have an extinguishing agent readily available. That was not in the previous ordinance. Changing the 2 fines on the next slide on paragraph F. So the first is going from 225 to 200 plus court costs, and then possession of fireworks not authorized by the ordinance itself going from 500 to 300. No change was recommended on the citation. The burn ban was declared by the state. Next slide, please. So this is the same slide that was used last presentation. I think one thing I may have failed to point out is these summaries are based on June 25th through July 5th. This is not just July 3rd and July 4th. And the reason we put June 25th through July 5th is that's when we start getting complaints about fireworks all the way through the season. And as you can see here from the beginning of the ordinance in '04, we were receiving 431 calls for that time period, not just the 3rd and the 4th. And as you can see, as the years go by, the calls for service have gone down to the point where 2021, we only had 114 calls in that time period. But if you're going to break that down even further, for 2021, those numbers were a little bit smaller for those 2 days. So if you look at 2021, there was actually only 34 calls for July 3rd and July 4th. So for those 2 days. So sometimes people just think we're talking about those 2 days. So there's only actually 34 calls. The permits are up. We don't, in years past, like we used to, staff overtime shift for people to go out there. Currently running about a 12% staffing deficit, so we don't really have the people to put people out just for fireworks enforcement. One thing to note on these calls, these are only fireworks calls. These do not include in-progress calls, domestics, collisions, assault and batteries, burglaries. These are just calls for fireworks alone, not just other calls that are coming into the 911 center at that point in time. When you go through, we looked at reducing the fine itself to attempt to lessen the apprehension of writing a ticket. You start talking about writing a $200 ticket to a 12-year-old kid and his dad out in front of the house. That's something to be aware of. I did go through and actually look at actual calls for service, and I summarized the calls actually on July 3rd. So on July 3rd, the call breakdown for last year, it started about noon. And this is the way the calls come in. So this is some of the misnomer about issuing citations. So there was a call that came in, no address given, just a general area. Hey, there's fireworks in this area. By the time the officer drives there, there's no one there popping fireworks. So and this position in the call is no contact. About 7 o'clock that night, there's that address given. That person had a valid permit. Go on to 9 o'clock. Going on at 10 o'clock at night, the report was kids in the park using fireworks. By the time we got there, they were gone, so there was no contact. Going on to 10:39, there was a video of kids using fireworks. They were no longer outside. We gave 10:42, the RP canceled the call because the subject had left the area. 11:12, contact made. No fireworks were being used at the time we got there. 11:16 at night, checked your own satisfaction to all patrol. When we produce check your own satisfaction, that are outweighing our ability to respond to those calls. So check your own satisfaction means you've got something in your district, and if you have time, go by and check it because you have other calls going on, or all officers are assigned. By the time patrol got there, there was no contact with suspects. Again, there was no contact in the area. Going on the 4th, so pretty much the same thing. So a lot of times we get calls, we get there, there's no one there. So if you break that down itself, just for fireworks calls just on 3rd and 4th, which is not shown on the slide, going back to 2017, for those 2 days, those calls are 67, 51, 79, 57, and 2021 is 34. So this is in addition to the approximately 1,300 calls that roll into the 911 center every 7 days. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. I know there was an election held. It's about 60-40. It seems like that 60-40 holds true. I have 2 dogs. Chief Moore has a couple of dogs, and it's still 60-40 for and against. So
I have a couple of questions, but I don't know if it's really for you or maybe Larry more. But so the $225, I don't even know we charge. Like, have we ever, like, would that be code enforcement that would write that ticket?
which one are we talking about?
The $225 if they don't clean up the debris.
So for me, for the way we work is if we get a call for fireworks that come to your cul-de-sac and there's fireworks debris everywhere, we have to see you use it. It has to fall in our presence, misdemeanor committed in our presence, to issue a citation. Now, if your neighbor, Mayor Wimpy, sees you do that and she wants to sign the citation and go to court and testify against you, so it's very difficult for us to issue for failing to pick up your debris. And a lot of times in some of these calls, the disposition is we get there, they're not popping fireworks, but they're picking it up. So that's normally what we see when we go out to these types of calls. And so it has to be committed in our presence to actually press charges. We could write a report, but then it's 30 to 45 minutes to take a report with other calls going on, forwarding it to Mr. Dennis to try to, press charges against someone for fireworks.
And I know that Ross would clean up, so I wouldn't.
We don't do fireworks at our house, but our neighbors do, and they do clean up. But I do know there's neighbors that don't clean up, because when I worked at the police department, I got those complaints. I didn't even know that there was a charge. I mean, I didn't even know that was even in the ordinance to do that.
But that makes
so.
sense that how do you?
Yeah, normally
Yeah.
what we're seeing is everybody in the neighborhood is using fireworks, and then they all get out there together with leaf blowers and brooms and clean it up. We do have a little bit better visibility this year than last year as far as permits. And so when someone calls in, if they'll give us, so a lot of these calls, it's just, hey, they're in this area, like a park, or there's no address. If someone gives us an address, dispatch can actually go into the computer system, look up the address and say, nope, they have a permit. So unless they're being unsafe or something else is going on, we're not going to even dispatch an officer, because in a town of 120,000 people, and you're staffing 10 to 12 officers on a shift, you can very easily outweigh your resources.
My other thing, and again, this could be for Larry, and this was before your time, Larry, but they used to put, like, when you would get a permit, you would put, like, when True Green comes to your house and they put that little stake, they would do that. And so then that way the neighbors already knew, without even having to call dispatch, that they had a permit. I don't know at what time we quit doing that, but I'm wondering if that may be something that we look at to go back to.
It's my understanding that the time that we discontinued doing that was never whenever people did not have to come directly to City Hall to pick up a permit. Whenever we did online permits, that's when we discontinued, having the plastic thing out. They're still required to have the permit with them and to have it posted at their property, but it's never been technically required for them to put it, in the front part of their parking lot. It was just a nicety that we were doing back whenever it was, paper-based.
I just was wondering if there'd be just less problem if people would know, but how long has dispatch been able to tell? Is this the first year they'll be able to say, yes, they have a permit?
It used to be much more difficult. It's easier now. Not that I would say people would be dishonest, but if the paper was yellow, you're going to have people putting stickers in there with just a yellow piece of paper on it that looks like they got a permit.
And
so,
and the ordinance already says you're supposed to post it. So why would, the city has no obligation to provide you a plastic thing you can tape it on.
Well, it sounds like they just have to have it on them. It doesn't have to be
it on
posted.
them.
Okay, I thought he said it had.
if you don't want your neighbors to complain to you, you should just put a sign in the yard with your.
I would just
I have a
post it
permit.
I would
Yeah.
just post it, then that way it wouldn't be.
But generally what we're seeing is when you call us, by the time we get across the traffic in this town, whoever's doing it is almost done by the time we get there. And so.
Well, I know one of the complaints that I've received from my constituents is they thought that the price of the permit was going to pay for extra patrol to be able to go to do that.
It goes in the general fund. We don't.
I understand that, but I don't know if that's what was like when they voted on it, if that was how we sold it to them. I don't know, but I even feel like I kind of remember that that's where the money was supposed to go. And I know it goes to the general fund, but that's just, I get the complaint.
I had
from
the
a lot of my
opportunity to sit on the committee that came up with this, and I was on the 40% against it. But it passed anyway. And our thought is to do controlled chaos, cut it off, from going early, cut it off from going late. And just during that period, it was just a free for all. The original intent was, even though the money went into the general fund, the original intent was to pay for off-duty officers to go out and work those shifts. Now, I don't know how far past that occurred. I believe the practice may have been stopped before Chief Berryhill was promoted.
I will tell you that, and I remember being a patrol officer back then. So the calls for service far out from July 3rd and 4th have gone down. So it has restricted people pretty much to those 2 days. And the complaints have gone down. Now, whether people assume their neighbors have the permit and don't call us, we have less calls. But I would tell you the 60-40 is pretty consistent as far as people that want fireworks against people that do not like fireworks.
So Chief Moore, I know you're in the audience, but does your fire marshals, do they work on the 3rd and 4th to enforce the ordinance of? Or
I only have 3 total, and there's 1 typically on duty, unless they took vacation.
Yeah,
he's off. They rotate 24 on, 48 off, just like shift work. So 1 would be the most deputy fire marshals that we would have any time on duty ever. And if they take vacation that weekend, they're just off.
Okay.
I can tell you this, I'm starting to get a lot of people complaining about it, and I think we should do more enforcement. So I'd like to know what the council members think, because if the council members feel that, then I'll get with the chiefs and we will figure it out.
Well, I'm with Assistant City Manager. I think fireworks should be left to the professionals, because I know too many doctors who've had to patch up people who held on just a little too long or lost an eye or something. It's just, when it's done by professionals, done well, I don't need my neighbor to shoot off something that just makes noise. I want to go see something spectacular. That's just me. So if it's up to me, we would not have them at all. So I'm in the 40%. So, okay. Having said that, I understand the mentality behind reducing the fine. I also understand that the purpose of a fine is to prevent future, it's supposed to be a preventative thing. It's why punishment has 2 goals, to prevent and to punish. So with that in mind, has council set those amounts, or was that what the people voted on? Because when the people vote on something, I'm a little hesitant to make changes.
I'd have to look back at the original
language. I don't recall off the top of my head if the actual fine was set. I don't recall that it was.
I don't think the fine was part of it. I think the vote was just to allow it or not.
I believe that's
Okay.
what the question that was
I think
presented.
that's right from what I remember reading.
And that's because I'm uncomfortable with doing wholesale changes to something that the citizens voted on, because their will was expressed, right?
Yeah.
But the will was expressed in 2007 or whenever it was passed. And that could have changed, but if what you're telling me is it's consistently not changing, then I would be uncomfortable playing around too much with an ordinance that an election of the people.
Now, that being said, a survey has not been done in, quite some time. Now, is it still 60-40?
I would
Maybe
be
not.
thrilled to know, because frankly,
I bet it is.
I would.
I'm 60. I'm
Yeah,
part of the 60.
I
like
and
fun.
it may be,
I'm sorry.
but I think that I'm just uncomfortable. So I would want to know if council has set the fine and historically set the fine, then I'm okay taking your advice. I'm not sure I agree with it in this you understand my
Yeah,
concern.
we're just seeking input. So, I mean,
Yeah.
the council can decide whichever way they want to
And
go.
I wouldn't want to be a police officer having to stand there and write a 7-year-old and his dad a
Neither do
ticket.
I.
But at the same time, why bother having an ordinance if you're not going to have?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the sheer numbers now, the permits have increased. They're selling more permits, and the calls for service for fireworks have decreased. So on face value, it appears it's doing what it's intended to do. Now, that being said, the people that complain about fireworks are probably that 40% that have always hated fireworks. So I don't know if that's really changed, but you're always going to have.
I don't hate fireworks. I hate individual fireworks.
No, but this is this is what I've seen just personally. So as the permits have increased, it's because used to we all would, like all of us would get our little, the little things, sparkler things and the cheap fireworks. And we would just do that, in our yard with our kids. Well, once we could get permits, people started saying, hey, neighbor, let's get together and have, a get together and have fireworks in the out, in our yard or whatever.
Right.
And so that, to me, that is why, it's more people now are getting together to do them. And we literally meet neighbors. We've met neighbors doing that we've never met before, because now it's turned into a much bigger. So these aren't little small fireworks displays.
Yes.
Everyone's putting together their fireworks. There's thousands of dollars sometimes of fireworks all put together, and one person has the permit. So that's where you do it.
And that's the change the council made years ago, was to make sure it was in 60 feet of the permitted residence. So everybody didn't buy the fireworks and then hop the fence to the church's parking lot and do it there. It has to be within the permitted premises.
Right. But I feel like if we have to the people have voted, to me, that's the end, but the number of calls have gone down. So what are we talking about? Like, if the people have voted on it and the number of calls have gone down, I don't understand.
When you say more enforcement, what does that mean? Are we not?
Well,
it seems like we're enforcing it to the extent we have the staff to do so. So what would more enforcement look like?
Well, that's what I'm going to ask the chief, because I think we do need more enforcement. I hear from people all the time that there are folks that don't have permits. And so I'm going to talk to Norman to Brandon and have them give me a recommendation, because I think we should increase enforcement. I think we have that ability.
Yes, and when I brought this to the council a year ago, it was citizen driven. I like fireworks too. I don't like shooting them. I like watching them. But my constituents wanted them to be enforced. I think they're even okay with the fireworks, but they also want the rules to be followed, because they feel like that's the bill of goods that was sold to them when they voted for it, that there was going to be enforcement.
And without a dedicated component to do just enforcement for fireworks, like I was talking about earlier, the calls for service that are stacking up and then driving to the place in between calls, that's a difficulty with enforcement, because if you're 20 minutes out, the chances of catching someone actually doing in the act is difficult. But a dedicated component, if you want more enforcement, is really the only way you're going to be able to accomplish that.
I've never ratted on my neighbor, but my neighbor across the street was he just, he had no tolerance for it. And he would call as soon as anyone was doing it that may or may not have had one. And with that in mind, I got to see a lot of your folks regularly every 4th of July. And they were always got there after it was done. I mean, that's just the deal is they always, I think one time they got there while they were actually setting off fireworks and they had a permit. My neighbor was a little punch happy about this, but still, again, if we're going to have the ordinance, and this is what the people wanted, I'm uncomfortable changing what they voted on. And if we are, I think we should enforce it or not have it.
Well, I can say this is that if I would have been here back in the day, I would have voted yes for fireworks. And if I voted today, I vote yes. I'm amongst the 60%. But I do think we need to enforce it. And obviously we have a lot of matters we have to deal with, but I do believe that we need to have some type of plan of enforcement. So I'm going to ask Brandon and Norm to get together and come up with something, and I'll update the council.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
We do have one citizen that would like to speak on this item. Matt Griffith.
Hello, good evening. Before I begin, I just want to say that my remarks are not to bash any of our police department. I think the police department does a great job every single day. So this is not to target them in any way, but Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, hold on one second. Oh, sorry. So I'm against any changes to an ordinance that is not being enforced. And that's pretty much made clear by the numbers that were shown up there, regardless of the circumstances behind it, whether it's not enough resources, just the numbers, they don't lie. So whenever you look at that, there's just been no enforcement for one reason or another. And, lowering the citation would be great, but what good is that when the law is not being enforced? Broken Arrow loves law and order. We've always been a supporter of law and order. That's been clear. And the last I heard, and I did reach out to Chief Berryhill last week or earlier this week, might have been last week, to ask about the citation numbers. I didn't hear back, but they were up there, which is fine. And I've seen one comment after another on InstaTweet and FaceGram, whatever it's called, about how Sally's sister's cousin down the road in Country Air was shooting off fireworks, but then 4 houses down, Billy Bob's doing the same thing. But Sally gets a citation and she gets the police out there, but then Billy Bob doesn't get anything. And they say that on Facebook, and it happens time and time again. So it's just, there's no consistency with enforcement, and they were shooting fireworks off at the same time. One person receives a ticket, one person does not. And stories such as this, that wouldn't entice me to go get a permit, because why would I want to do that when nothing's being done about it? And I don't really think anyone's going to want to get a permit when they see proof that there's little to no risk of consequence. Whether this passes or not is yet to be determined. But what I would like answered, and what the citizens of Broken Arrow deserve to know, is whether or not with the changes this ordinance will actually be enforced, or if this is something that's just going to be, just empty words. So that's really the big question here. And as far as this goes, this is a big thumbs down for me. I know that's shocking to many of you up there, but I know many other people in this city feel the same way. So it's just got to make sense, guys and gals. You have to be careful with the pronouns these days. But that's really all I have. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. Do we have any direction that we want to discuss, or?
Well, it sounds like Mr. Spurgeon's going to look into that. So that
I am the 40%, and I voted that 40%, but I don't have any problems with it. But I do think it needs to be enforced. It's not right to not. So, and I understand the police department. I understand what I mean, that amount of officers that we have out there. We want them doing things that are really more important to that. So if we're going to have fireworks, maybe raise the fines up. I don't have any problem with that either. So, and enforce it, maybe to pay enough for police officers to come in. But again, I'm not opposed to it. And I do agree, the citizens voted for it. So I'm certainly not for going against their wishes.
Our officers have a lot to do. There's no question. I mean,
Right.
and keeping the city safe, I do think it is a matter of just coming up with a plan and then being able to promote the plan that we have people out there. Even if the chief or both chiefs come up with something and we put some people on duty for those 2 or 3 days,
I mean, there's going to be calls that, I mean, the chief explained it tonight that, if we added 3 or 4 people for both of those days, and they're going to get there and nobody's going to be shooting fireworks. I mean, there's so many contingencies that have to be looked at or issues that could come up that would prevent us being able to enforcement. And respectfully, the residents don't want to hear that. But we have to follow the law in terms of giving someone a ticket. So the chief does have a difficult his officers are in a very difficult decision when they go out there. But I do think if we can promote that we are providing more enforcement, that could cause some people as a deterrent with that more of an omnipresence that we're out there enforcing the code. And that's what I'd like to see.
What if it's not enforced in the long term? We might lose that opportunity. You know what I mean? So to keep that opportunity, I think we need to enforce it, come up with the funding, whatever it takes to encourage that.
Well, I'm looking at where that $50, $50 times 2,200 is $110,000. So figuring out what funding they need to have the extra officers, if that's what people are asking for, then, I don't see any other way to do it.
Well, the council's always been very good is that, you try not to pass any more laws than you have to, but you've always said you wanted the ones that we have to be relatively with the spirit of intent and the practicality of enforcing the codes. And this is something I think because we do have 40% of the people that have a problem with them, I think we have an obligation to put some kind of plan together to make sure that we are trying to enforce that code.
Well, we have 60% who voted to create this system, which includes fines, which includes enforcement. I mean, 60% of the people want this.
Yes.
And the other 40%, I don't know that they don't not want this. They just want to make sure that it's enforced so that the benefit of the is accomplished. I think that's the concern.
The back end of this is that I want to talk to Larry Curtis too about the fact that I've noticed some areas that are not cleaned up in a timely fashion. And I don't need to remind everybody how much the wind blows in Oklahoma and how much we get criticized sometimes about the condition of our city because, we can clean it up and then 2 or 3 days later, it doesn't look like we did. And so I'd like us to be more timely for those that do have the parties. And I can understand trying to clean it up in the middle of the night, but I've gone certain areas later in the day and it's still not cleaned up. So I'm going to include Larry's team as well.
For someone who doesn't shoot them off, I've sure had to clean up a lot of it in my front yard. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other further discussion? All right, item 9E, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of Michelle Bergwall to the City of Broken Arrow Board of Oh, wait, did I skip? I did. Sorry, Larry. 9D, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of PUD 338 13th Street Development. Larry Curtis.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Counsel, Larry Curtis, Community Development Director. With PUD 338, the applicant is proposing to decrease the lot frontage requirements for agricultural zoning district from 330 feet to 35 feet. The only public street to this property is through an existing substreet from the reserves at Bradford Park subdivision to the north. Pending the approval of the PUD, the owner intends to split the property into 2 parcels and construct 2 single-family residential homes. In the meeting held March 24th, 2022, the Planning Commission recommended approval by a vote of 5-0 for PUD 338 per staff recommendation. 3 citizens spoke with questions regarding the agricultural use, drainage, access.
So the questions that the citizens had, were we able to answer theirs to satisfaction?
Predominantly, I mean, as much as we could, yes.
Is anyone here to speak for or against it? I make a motion to approve PUD.
Well, I was just going to add one additional factor for Bradford Park itself it is a limited growth subdivision. There's only one access point into this subdivision. The original owner was trying to develop more. It's just because there's only one access point limits the development of growth. So again, that's the reason why I believe the original owner is looking to sell, and then for them to be able to still utilize the land for future development, it'll just be limited to 2 lots instead of many more lots associated with it.
This staff recommends this?
Yes, it does.
And there's no one here?
That is correct.
Then I'd make a motion to approve PUD 338.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Roll call. Now, item 9E.
Thank you.
Consideration, discussion, and possible approval of the appointment of Michelle Bergwall to the City of Broken Arrow Board of Adjustment for a 3-year term.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Board of Adjustment members are appointed to serve a 3-year term. The term of Board of Adjustment member Richard Carter expires on April 16th, 2022. Mr. Carter was originally appointed to the Board of Adjustment on April 16th, 2019 by City Council. Ms. Michelle Bergwall applied to serve on the Board of Adjustment and has been nominated by Councilor Parks to fill the position. Ms. Bergwall expressed her willingness to serve on the board for a 3-year term to expire April 19th, 2025. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
You know, I was pleased to recommend her, Ms. Bergwall. I've served on several committees. She served the last few years. She was on the Downtown Advisory Committee. She was on 2 TIF committees, and she was instrumental in our recycling program that we had. So, and she does have a background in construction and development. And this committee doesn't meet a lot, but when they do meet, it's an important meeting. It's one of the few committees, meetings or groups that actually their decision cannot be appealed to the City Council, I believe. The only appeal from it is district court. So it is an important committee. So I think she'll do a good job. And I'd like to make a motion that we appoint her to that position.
I think should be a great addition as well. Very good.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. Motion passes. Item 9F, consideration of the reappointment of Bob Corson to the City of Broken Arrow Planning Commission for a 3-year term.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Planning Commission members are appointed to serve a 3-year term. Bob Goranson was appointed by the City Council on May 4th, 2021 to fill the remainder of an unexpired term to expire May 1st, 2022. Mr. Goranson was nominated for reappointment by Mayor Whitby and has expressed his willingness to serve on the Planning Commission for another 3-year term to expire on May 1st, 2025. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Bob served previously, and I think he's been a really great asset coming back on with his, experience with the Corps. And I've heard from other planning commissioners how they feel he's really helped them understand, because a lot of them are newer. And the fact that he wanted to continue on, I thought was great.
Yeah, that's a good
Did
question.
you originally appoint him back in the day?
I don't remember. That's so long ago. I do know that I served with him on the Planning Commission, and I learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
He has always been one of the instrumental, if I had a question, because he did come from the Corps.
Yeah.
So he had so much to add to the Planning Commission. So again, I think he's a great person to serve on that committee.
Absolutely.
Commission.
Something that I really like about him too, I mean, I don't know, I'm assuming he contacted all of us probably, but he contacted me, wanting to still serve. And that doesn't happen a lot where
Usually
people
we're
actually,
following up with them.
yeah, we usually, and so I love it that he wants to so much. And I know he has a lot of words sometimes, and and I've talked to him a lot. I mean, we have a joke about that. So, I really appreciate how much he cares and that he asks really great questions. And a lot of people do learn from him. I've learned a lot listening to him in meetings. Yeah.
Hey, Mayor, you do know he's watching and he's eating all this up, right?
Yeah.
I guarantee you, Bob, we know you're out there.
Yeah, we know you're out there, Bob. That's
He'll
for sure.
want a raise now.
Give him
We're all
100%
good.
raise.
He's probably
100%
texting right
raise.
now. Already motioned.
All right, we have a motion
In a second.
and a second. Roll call.
Should vote no since he's watching.
He'll already know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. There are no preview ordinances. 11A, consideration, discussion, and possible adoption of an ordinance number 3725, an ordinance adopting a revised joinder agreement and master defined contribution plan document establishing the employee retirement system. Kelly Cox.
Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, Manager, members of the council. As discussed, this ordinance adopts a master plan and joinder agreement for the Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Plan. This ordinance specifically, along with the next two, are just language changes. They come in compliance with the IRS rules and regulations. This happens every 6 years. This plan is for the city manager special incentive plan. It is dedicated specifically for him under his contract. I recommend approval. Happy to answer any questions, and also recommend approval of the emergency ordinance.
Any questions?
Make a motion to adopt ordinance number 3725.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call. Motion passes. With a motion for emergency clause.
So moved.
Motion and second. Roll call.
Hey, you're fast.
I was fast. That's fine. You've been beating me.
Gosh, twice.
Item 11C, consideration, discussion, and possible adoption of ordinance number 3726.
This too is the same legal language change. This plan is for the city manager plan that is not in use. There's no fines or fees for us to keep this plan open. It would be in case we ever were to want it. I do recommend approval and again, recommend the emergency clause be adopted as well.
Could we wait and see how he works out here first?
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 3726. Second.
Motion and second. Roll call. Item 9D is for emergency clause. We have a motion and second. Roll call. Item 11E, consideration, discussion, and possible adoption of ordinance number 3727.
This ordinance is for the non-uniformed employees that are not covered under the other two plans. Happy to answer any questions, recommend approval, and also recommend the emergency.
A motion? I have a motion and a second. Roll call. Item 11F, emergency clause. I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Kelly.
Remarks and inquiries by government bodies. I was just going to say real quick, NSUBA had received a sampling from the survivor tree from the Monroe building, and they dedicated it this morning, which was very moving. And I just thought that was really neat that the city of Broken Arrow has a sampling of that, of the survivor tree and what it represents, and that we should always remember. And it's my understanding they're going to do a ceremony every April 19th at probably 8:45 to lead up. And they read every single name. And as you know, you have to continue to read people's names to remember them. And so it was very moving.
It was certainly well represented by the city too. The chief made certainly some comments. People that really, you could tell by their voice how much they really cared. Scott Moore opened it with prayer. I mean, did a really great job. That's why I was kidding about the prayer here. It's really deep. And then Scott Quail actually worked over there. A couple of our employees are actually those that work with the chaplain. But the mayor, she did a great job. And you could tell that she was very lovingly concerned and cared. And it was just a really uplifting time. So I think the city and the people who represented the city did a great job at that NSU tree deal today. Good
Sorry,
job.
I missed it. I guess I didn't know about it.
I didn't either, but one of the things, I don't know if I've discussed this publicly before, but my father banked in that building. There was a credit union, and I used to go visit that building, and my stepmother worked in that building, and she passed away in the bombing. And so this anniversary always hits me hard because it's so easy to forget what we can lose by other people's hate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciate everyone who took an opportunity to stop and remember those that we lost in that. Both I lost friends and someone who I dearly loved. And it helps me understand those who suffered in the New York Twin Towers and all that, because you don't understand what true hate is until you see it exhibited in someone who has no care for others. So lest we never forget.
Anyone else?
I wanted to share something. I'm gonna take till next time on my
Your corsage?
constitutional read. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about my corsage that I have. So I'm going to be serving on the senior center board whenever they figure out some bylaw stuff. But I got to take another tour of the senior center yesterday. And, it's funny because 3 years ago when I was a brand new counselor, I took a tour, but you look at it with really different eyes 3 years later when you know what's paying for what and all that. And I'm just amazed at how much goes on in that little building. And it reminds me of St. Francis. Have y'all been in St. Francis where you can tell they just kept adding on and adding on, just abandoned. And that's what it reminds me of every time I'm in there. But this is one of the craft classes. And so when I went in, they were like, do you want a corsage? And I said, yes, I'll wear it to the city council meeting. So that's where that came from. But y'all, it's 55 and over, and 55 is not senior, by the way. I'm just saying.
There, right?
No, I'm not almost there. Yes, I am almost there.
All three of
A
us.
little bit over 2 years from now. Crazy. But there's so many great things. So I just want to encourage you to talk about this to, the people that that are 55 and over, because the programs they have, it's not just like little old people sitting around knitting. And not that there's anything wrong with knitting. I would never have the patience for it. There is knitting.
There's
but
also
there-
ukulele lessons
Yes,
too.
there
though,
is.
and
so-
there's Tai Chi, and there's
Line
Zumba,
dancing.
and there's like,
Pool tournaments.
yes, well, yeah, the pool, when you walk into the pool hall, I feel like, it's like you're walking to an old smoky bar, except there's no smoke or alcohol, but it's all dark, and I love it. But it was
Well,
it's just great.
There's no visible alcohol.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There might be flasks. I'm not sure. I don't know if somebody else wants to share, but I'm just going to share. Friday, April 29th is the Senior Resource and Health Fair at the Community Center at Central Park from 9 to 1:30. And they filled up all 100 exhibitor booths. That's pretty impressive. And so just a lot of great people. I know pretty much everyone. I don't know if you've served on every other board except that.
I was asked to serve on it probably 10 years ago when I had a retail store, and I didn't really realize what it was. And I thought it was like the high school senior board. And then I realized I shouldn't have said that out loud, but yes.
Yeah. Well, but I really just appreciate all the board members that have served and continue to serve, because it's just really neat what we have going on in our city for all ages. So it's amazing. Yeah.
I just want to say this week too is National Volunteer Week, and I just want to thank the Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association, which we are members of, but they do a lot of volunteering for the police department, along with the reserve officers, and also our citizens that serve on our boards and commissions that volunteer. I just want to wish them a happy volunteer week, and hopefully they're not working real hard this week. They will be, but
Oh, I have one final thing. We still have the Mayor's Water Challenge. So if you've not signed up, I think we're in second place, and we were in first, but we're now in second, kind of competitive. So if you haven't signed up,
have we ever
jump on
won?
there. I don't think so. I don't think we've been this far ahead, have we?
No, we've always we're always ahead for a while, and then usually there's a community that pulls ahead of us at the end.
We can do it.
We can do it.
We can win.
Let's go Broken Arrow
That's right.
Go VA.
and
All right.
Union.
Sorry.
Union can do it too.
And Union.
Yeah.
All right. Remarks from City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple, because I know we have some other great presentations that we need to get to. With regard to the senior board, the Vice Mayor mentioned it just in passing, is the bylaws. There's a glitch, as I understand it, in non-legal terms in regard to getting her added. And Council Member Udi is working with Yvette and the board to get that addressed. So as soon as practicable, I believe that they're going to be moving forward. They fully support, as I understand it, getting her on there. She was at the meeting, I believe, today. So I'll keep you posted, but I don't believe it's going to be any issue. It's just a matter of the logistics and the timing, getting everything done. So I don't know if Councilmember Parks or Udi would need to add anything to that.
No, it's just literally a little interesting wording in the bylaws and just adjusting some timing, but they are very excited about the collaboration with the city that proposed, and they're excited to have Christie join. So I think.
And they did affirm again today that they're pleased with having the two members from the city on their board. And I think it will serve us all well.
I'm glad the Vice Mayor mentioned the senior fair on the 29th. That is an agenda topic for the committee next week, and I'm going to encourage all of them to attend because it would be amazing for them, if they're not familiar with it, to actually go out and see the type of services that are available. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, Vice Mayor. Just a couple other things. The FY 2023 budget process is underway, and we are getting close to establishing a date for the workshop. And council members, I appreciate you getting back with your availability. I'm going to put a shameless plug for everyone to stick around in TV land or social media land, because we have some great presentations that we're going to get about Aspen Ridge and the development down south. And I've asked Norm to coordinate with both the Jennifers in providing updates on the TIP district and the development as well as the innovation district. And I would like to make sure, since there is a lot of construction going out there, is to periodically come before the council in your role as beta to provide updates and give you an opportunity to ask questions, or to ask questions that you may be getting from your constituents about the development that's happening. So I just want to put that out there. Everybody stick around past the BAMA meeting, which I know there's some good information coming there. And finally, as I mentioned, Michaela, at the last meeting, I just want to congratulate Jennifer Rush for passing her first year. I'm personally very happy that she's on the city's leadership team. And I think I mentioned this several times the last couple of days, is that economic development looks very different in every community. And in a community that has 150,000 people and about 135,000 people when you count everybody in our zip code, there are a lot of expectations. And New Orleans Square is a perfect example of the importance of redevelopment and having a team of people that can go and address those, whether it's a Rose District, New Orleans Square, East Broken Arrow, whether it's manufacturing like EDC does. It takes a team. And I just want to say thank you for Jennifer, your first year. It was going to be hard to find somebody to follow Norm and the foundation he established, but I think Jennifer's off to a very good start. So congratulations.
I just want to add, just real quick, talking about New Orleans Square, and I'm surprised Vice Mayor did not mention it, but this weekend is the New Orleans Square Spectacular, and it starts at 7 p.m. and it is at Home Church. So looks like a pretty exciting event.
That's all I have, Mayor.
It's outside. Oh yeah, stilt walkers, aerial silks. Yep. Food trucks. Thank you. Okay. All right, there's no executive session.
Move to adjourn.
Oh, too late.
There a motion, a second. Roll call.
Johnny is
Johnny's
really
always
quick
ready to go.
tonight.
Johnny's ready to go.
Yeah.
He just wanted to get his, get one.
Yeah.
Call the Broken Arrow Municipal.
Here?
Moody.
Here.
Parks.
Here.
Gillespie.
Here.
Wimpy.
Are there any items to be removed from this consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Have a motion, second. Roll call. Be faster.
I did.
He hit
It
it.
was, I hit the one
He
before.
hit well.
The computer's a slow one, not me.
I was laughing.
Item 5A, notification regarding the Environmental Protection Agency's December 2021 revisions to the lead and copper rule in the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality's lead testing program for schools and daycare centers. Charles and Lauren.
Thank you. Good evening, Vice Chair Gillespie, trustees, Mr. Spurgeon. In December of last year, the Environmental Protection Agency published the latest version of the federal lead and copper rule. And, we love acronyms, so it's the LCR. But first, I want to explain why the rule exists. We all know that exposure to lead and copper can cause health problems, with exposure to lead being the most serious, and that's at very, very low levels. Because of this, most of the focus on the lead and copper rule has been on the lead portion. I wanted to kind of share some history. Lead has been used for over 6,000 years. Jewelry, paints, dishes, coins. It was even used in the Roman water system, even though they knew there were health problems with lead. It was just convenient. However, now it is known that there are no safe levels of lead. It's absolute zero. When the EPA was established in 1970, they began passing laws with the goals of eliminating lead from our environment. These laws included removing lead from gasoline. That was in 1973, lead from paint in 1978. So it's important to know that lead is not found in drinking water. Oh, I'm sorry, we're on slide 3. Thank you. EPA first began addressing the issue in water systems in 1986. So in that year, they banned the use of lead pipes. Next slide. Then in 1991, the first lead and copper rule was passed with the goal of minimizing both lead and copper in drinking water. Since then, the rule has been revised several times, with the latest version being passed in December of 2021. So from here, I'd like to kind of hand off to Lauren Kimbrough, our Water Resources Coordinator. Lauren and her staff have taken over the role of water quality in Broken Arrow, and they do an incredible job. So I'm going to hand it to her from here.
Thank you, Jeff. So after the Flint, Michigan water crisis, EPA wanted to strengthen the LCR to better protect children and communities from the risk of lead exposure. So in December 2021, they published a new LCR. Some of the key provisions of the new rule are identifying the areas that have the potential to be the most impacted by lead exposure, strengthening water treatment requirements, replacing lead service lines, protecting children in schools, and improving public communication of the results. The state of Oklahoma hasn't taken primacy of the new regulations yet, and the way that they are implemented might be slightly different depending on the state. So we plan to update the authority further on the regulations as they apply to the city of Broken Arrow after we receive direction from the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality, or DEQ. However, tonight we want to share with you an initiative that DEQ is offering as a proactive response. Until now, the LCR has primarily focused on testing for lead in residences and didn't require any testing in schools or daycare centers. So to begin addressing protecting children in schools, that aspect of the new rules, DEQ is offering a free lead testing program to public schools and daycare centers on a first come, first served basis. Those who participate receive free lab testing as well as guidance on what steps to take to eliminate lead from their facilities. Broken Arrow Public Schools applied for the program and they were accepted. So in February, DEQ, working with Broken Arrow Public Schools, began the program by collecting water samples in the elementary school buildings. And once they've completed that, they will move on to the secondary schools. Any fixtures that are found to be above the federally established action level will be taken out of service or replaced as required. And there are rebates that are available to Broken Arrow Public Schools for repairs and replacements up to $50,000. One of the program requirements is that Broken Arrow Public Schools has to communicate their efforts and findings to the public. And based on these communications, we expect the public may begin reaching out to Broken Arrow Public Schools and the DEQ to ask questions. As stated before, the state of Oklahoma has until 2024 to adopt the new rule. The city has already been doing what's required under the previous LCR, including monitoring our water system at sampling locations throughout the city on a regular basis. And to date, we have found no exceedances of lead or copper in any of our samples. The Utilities Department will continue to update the authority and the public as the rules are adopted by the state of Oklahoma. And that concludes our presentation. We would be happy.
Comments. I don't have any questions, I don't think, but going back to the Romans, because I taught the history of plumbing. Of course, the word plumbing means the worker, as a plumber is a worker of lead. But the Romans liked the wine so much in lead containers that only the wealthy, the affluent, could afford it. And so the rich people in the Romans' times would put all their wine in lead containers. And they liked it because that lead provided gave it a sweet taste that they didn't know 2 years later how detrimental it was to the elite in the Roman time. The poor people had this pottery they put their wine in, so they didn't have that particular problem. I do know that historically, the city has tested their lead content for in the water system, and I think a lot of it has to do. I learned at that time with the type of water. Other parts of the country has a little bit of acid, more acid than what we have in our area here, that actually leached the solder, the lead solder that was used back in the Northeast and in New York, and it actually would pull that lead out of the solder, and even that minute amount really made it dangerous. But I'm certainly encouraging that we go ahead and test it, but I think so far that we've run, we don't have a lot of lead pipes, I know, in Broken Arrow, and I think there'll be a low content. But you go back to check the old schools, you talked about equipment. You take an old piece of equipment that had lead soldering and stuff in it like that, then it could be, in other words, the whole system could be good except for that one fixture. So I think it's wise for them to follow up on that. But lead is definitely detrimental to the mental health of an individual and our kids. And just the last day or two, I was reading an article, and the Midwest is some of the highest. Missouri, Oklahoma wasn't included, but some of those areas that have springs, water that has high acidity in it, they have a tendency to pull any lead that's in there, they pull it out into the water system.
Well, you mentioned that the state's working to promulgate its own version of the rules and adopt it as required, but is there any reason we have to wait for the state to do that, or are we already addressing it at a higher level?
We are already addressing it. There are some things that we're going to have to, there's steps that we have to take before we can comply with all of the rules, and we're working on those initial steps.
If I may.
Yes.
Yeah, I asked for this presentation tonight. From our end, as Chuck said, we have no lead in our water and we test it all the time. We don't have lead service lines, just as Councilor Parks indicated. Most of our growth is post 1970, so we had better materials. The bigger issue, you may see some fixtures that are being replaced in Broken Arrow Public Schools or statewide, and you're going to start hearing a lot of chatter, a lot of concern, whether it's Broken Arrow or other communities. So we just wanted to bring this to you to let you know what is transpiring. We're on top of it. Broken Arrow Public Schools is one of the first, probably the largest, that's partnering with DEQ. Tulsa Public School, or Tulsa's actually been doing it for a while, but we do expect some concern from the citizens as they hear either from DEQ website, Broken Arrow Public Schools, or just in the media themselves. So that's really the point of tonight's presentation, is just to let you know the status and where we are.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. I love how passionate you are about our work.
Remarks and inquiries by governing body members. Remarks and updates by city manager.
Just want to echo great report presentation by Chuck and Laura. I appreciate all you do. That's all I have.
Absolutely. There's no executive session. There's a motion and a second. Roll call. All right. Call the Broken Arrow Economic Development Authority to order. Roll call.
Ford,
Here.
Udi,
Here.
Parks,
Here.
Gillespie,
Here.
Wimpy.
Here. Are there any items to be removed?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call. The South Broken Arrow TIF number 3, inclusive of Aspen Ridge and Innovation District developments. Jennifer Rush and Jennifer Conway.
Good evening, Chair and Vice Chair and trustees, and thank you for the kind words, City Manager. I have really enjoyed my year at Broken Arrow. It's been really fun. Norm told me during my interview process, he said, you're going to be great. You're going to be good. You know, we've set this up and it's a well-oiled machine, economic development. And I was wondering if he was just trying to recruit me or if he was being serious. And he's done a fabulous job. And a lot of the work that he's done is continuing to flow. And that's evident in this TIF as well. Before we get into the presentation, I will tell you that without this TIF, we would not see the development that we're seeing in South Broken Arrow. I'm very familiar with this area. So I appreciate you for taking this investment and putting this TIF in place. And so we could bring these amenities to the South Broken Arrow. I also wanted to make a comment because I sometimes see on social media when I shouldn't read it, but that the economic development manager must live in North Broken Arrow, and that's not true. I pass by Aspen Ridge on a daily basis, several times a day. So it's been fun to watch the progress. Also tell you as part of this presentation, putting this together has been kind of like trying to hit a moving target because so much has been changing on a daily basis that literally something I told the city manager, I think at 2:00 today has already changed. So I'm going to try to update that and also turned in the presentation last Wednesday at 9:30 and said that the signal arms were getting ready to be installed. And then I drove by and saw them up. So I'll update you on that and on the changes. So I just really wanted to take a moment to thank, it's been wonderful working with the EDC, Jennifer Conway, the great partnership working on this TIF. Also wanted to thank some people. There's some city staff that is really putting a lot of time and effort into making this happen. So Jill, Larry, Amanda from Community Development, Kenny's been in several meetings and helping guide that along. Travis, Pat, Tim, and Ethan. They have done a wonderful job providing updates and getting construction going. So I appreciate working with a great team on this as well. So my presentation, so like I said, it's a little bit out of place. I had the update on Reesers on the very last slide. I thought save the best for last. And per the advice of the city manager, he said, nope, talk about Reesers first. So, because that's really what people want to hear about. So basically, some of the information I just found out. So we know that Brookshire's, we heard that announcement that Brookshire's had purchased the Reesers brand. And so they have several different chains in the Texas market and some other markets. They're a great partner to have. They basically, I'll go through on the plat process and some of the deadlines that you'll see. But Steve Easley has indicated that he will be applying for an earth change permit within the next 2 weeks. And he'll start moving dirt on that. He talked to AWG and they will begin construction 125 days once the dirt starts moving. But one of the very exciting announcements, and I have a little video if you want to show a clip, I don't like the music, or Brookshire is going to add into this research development is they are going to put a playground. So an outdoor playground. So this just kind of shows you what they have at one of their stores.
There's our idea card.
So cool. I'm gonna play. I know. She's like the music.
The music just.
And I can attest, I went to law school in Texas. When we lived there, we shopped at Brookshire's, and there were other opportunities, but that was really the best one that had the best community feel.
And that's what they've wanted to give back to the community, and so they've created that. So it's great to hear that. It sounds like the research is in great hands with that parent company. So you also saw there's opportunity for outdoor seating within that area. That's been kind of one of the delays in trying to get the updates of where research is at. They've updated their footprint. They were 60,000 square feet, then they went to 65,000 square feet, and then now they need 50 more feet of land from Steve Easley as of today because they're putting the playgrounds in. And so that's, I think that's just a great opportunity.
So
and I can't wait to tell the neighborhood that abuts that about that. So as we get into the TIF update, so the TIF is obviously north of the Creek Turnpike, and we have a portion that is Aspen Ridge that we entered into an economic development agreement with Mr. Steve Easley on developing. I can tell you that there is tons of interest, and I'll talk about some of that construction piece as well. So completed today, we've had several things completed today, project mass grading, roadway subgrade, aggregate, the base, of course, asphalt. They are leaving the top 2 inches. They're not completing that because obviously there's going to be a lot of construction traffic going into the area, and we don't want to tear up the new roads that we just put in. So that final layer will go on whenever the bulk of the construction has been completed. The main drive entry is completed. 90% of the sidewalk is complete and backfilled, and then offsite utilities, water and sewer are complete. We'll talk about the another sewer issue here in a little bit. So I put currently underway signal poles. They're up, but there is an issue with one of the poles to one of the cross arms, and so you'll see we're missing one there, and so they've sent that back to get fixed, and then it will be coming up. One thing to note that will be important to the public is when these signal poles will be operational. So as soon as they're completely installed and ready, they will be operational. I know some people might say, well, there's nothing in there yet. However, there's going to be heavy construction traffic coming in and out of the area. So a lot of construction vehicles and those type of things. And so we definitely want the public not to ignore those signal poles. And so they will be in operation. There's also right now light pole bases going along Norfolk and final grading and sod in the area. And
I've driven on it.
I
was at
doing
fire
that.
station number 2 today and saw the.
With drone footage, communications has been doing a great documenting the progress. And so we're really excited to, at the end of the project, be able to show a whole progression photo of everything that has been going on. The original development agreement, basically these were the items that there's 2 separate pieces. There's pieces that the developer will be bidding out agreement. So the traffic signal, the deceleration lane, the road on Norfolk, and the offsite water and sewer, and that was all contract. On this, so Mr. Easley will be bidding out these items on the agreement. There has to be a water line within 5 feet of research, a sanitary sewer line within 5 feet of research, and a pad site for research. And so he will be bidding out those projects according to the Competitive Bid Act and working on that. It's a little hard to put that in when we don't necessarily have a complete site plan for research. But one of the things I failed to mention is that research has finished their civil designs, so they're ready to move forward on that. That we're within budget on what we had put with the economic development agreement. So total engineering and construction to date is about 2.5 million. Allowable per the agreement is 5.5 million. We still have other projects, like I mentioned, the water line, sewer line to research, and some other things that will be part of that. But I've been told that we are going to be within budget as of right now. So last summer, we started neighborhood meetings with the neighborhood, and many of you attended those meetings to hear about their concerns, especially with an apartment complex, a multifamily unit going within that development. And I stay in close contact with the neighborhood, texting on pretty much a weekly basis almost with them, and so keeping them in the loop of what's going on. But the neighborhood input was added to the PUD. So as far as that included things like additional landscaping, setbacks, those type of things, that Jill did send that to the neighborhood to review. And so they have seen that information that was included in that. There was the first pre-development meeting for the site plan for Aspen Ridge was February 17th, 2022. Preliminary plat was submitted March 1st. And it went before Planning Commission April 14th. So as you can see, it is a little bit of a moving target because that was just last week. So we're moving quickly on that. We have some future dates to be aware of. So there's going to be a second economic development agreement coming to beta dealing with stormwater. There was some pieces that there was verbal discussions about some pieces about the work that the city would do, but they're not clearly outlined in the current agreement. And so we want to make sure to put them in a second development agreement and bring them to the authority. A minor amendment that was to the PUD is going before the Planning Commission May 12th. The conditional final plat is going to the Planning Commission May 12th. And then Jill did let me know that they did receive permission to kind of expedite the conditional final plat to City Council. So it's planned for May 17th, and unless there's any issues, then it will be June 6th. But we're trying to get those completed and those lots done in order to get them sold. So just want to talk about where we are development wise. So at this time, I can't, obviously that we don't have lots, so they're not sold. And so I can't necessarily talk about who's going in there. I've been asked to not announce that yet, but the developer said as soon as we are able to announce, you guys will be aware of what's going into that area. So right now he has letters of intent for more than 100,000 square feet of the contractual retail. So he's contractually obligated to bring in 260,000 square feet. So once construction begins, we'll see more coming in there. I talked about how Research expanded their footprint. He's also reached, Mr. Easley reached an agreement with Core Church for an additional 3 acres that are within the TIF boundaries. And he will be, he's secured commitments from national tenants for those additional 3 acres as well. So permit drawings for the 168 unit multifamily project will be available and submitted in June, and then construction is, so that is the timeline right now. The first thing, I know people say, what is the first thing we're going to see? I can probably predict the first thing we're going to see is the gas station convenience store going into that area. We've already had a pre-development meeting with them, and they have indicated that they want to be up and running in order to get all that construction traffic that comes through. So surfacing, that type of stuff. So that, and we know that those typically, once those start building, they go up quick. So that's probably going to be one of the first things that we see built within the area. There's also 2 national food retailers that are, if they could have been in yesterday, they would have already been in there. I think the community development team has had several pre-development meetings with them. They are ready to be in there. But we've had to get things situated with Research first and make sure that they were comfortable where their site plan was at before we could start having those conversations with those other retailers. So that is really where we're at as far as presentation. And so if you guys have any questions, I'd love to answer them at this time.
Questions?
Let me just, any issues or concerns the council need to be aware of that you know of right now?
None that I know of right now. That, you know, one of the things that we need to look at is timelines, because the TIF, there is payments due with the debt service on that TIF. And so we want to make sure that we get these things built in order to get them on the tax rolls to have that revenue to make these payments. So as of right now, it looks like with everything coming in, there's additional things coming in quicker than what we thought were going to be there. So there's going to be some different things to balance. So I'm working with Cindy to make sure that we will have the monies available to pay off those debt service. The first being next summer. So the first payment, and then there's one in December. And the developer also makes a payment to Beta, and he has indicated that he will be paying that earlier than contractually required to. So
Just for the public's knowledge, I mean, Mr. Easley has people approaching him, retail, commercial, that are interested in. We are somewhat we may be aware of some of those, but we're not really allowed to say until he gives us the okay that he's dotted the I's and crossed the proverbial T's, and with regard to that company there. So that's still the position we're taking, right?
Yes, and really where that comes from is that comes from as a company, and some companies want to make their own announcements with that. So right now what it has is letters of intent, and if you work in the economic development world, the letters of intent, people can back out of those at any time. And so really it's not until they actually get the land and have those agreements. And so typically things like that aren't announced. You also don't want, in the economic development, you don't want people to poach. You know, somebody coming in, they know they're coming in. Oh, well, I have a better spot of land that I could pull you into. And so there's several reasons for keeping that information quiet, and then also making sure that companies are aware. But as of right now, I have sent him any retailer that comes in that's interested in the area. I have sent them to him and to his broker, and it's looking like it's pretty full for what they have coming in. So they have very little additional room with what they're planning to put anything else in, which is great because we also have a lot of other properties around the area with Warren Theater, 121st and Elm, and there's interest with South Broken Arrow. So originally, I think what we said to the presses was there was about $40 million worth of investment. It's looking like it's about $60 million right now. So You guys did a good job.
The reason I bring it up is because there's no secrets. I mean, you might have somebody's cousin, they get ready to go, finds out that there's going to be an expansion of the business and they beat the city to it. And really we're under obligation because of confidentiality not to say anything. So sometimes announcements happen organically without us. And we're still taking the position is that until we get the word for sure, we don't put it out. But we do know as things, as I believe, as things start to happen in the next 6 months, there will be probably a lot of information out there about what may be coming. And then when we can make that announcement, I want to make sure the council members, the authority, the EDC, everyone's is aware of this and that the city played a part in bringing that development to this part of our community.
Absolutely. And I see that happening possibly the end of next month. Once the plat is approved, I see those announcements starting to come out. So that's very exciting.
It's very exciting.
Were you talking about IKEA getting linked?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the April Fool's joke.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No, I just want to close on this part because I know Jennifer Conway has some work. I mean, it has been yeoman's effort by the operations team and the administration team to get this point to where we're at. And I just want to thank everybody as you did. Just kudos to everyone, especially engineering in this stormwater issue. It took a lot of thinking in order to come up with a plan that addresses the stormwater that's going to come because of our responsibility. So we will be bringing that second agreement back for council's consideration so we can take care of that. And that way there's no issues. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. It's my favorite spot to be between everyone else in their bed. But I do want to take a moment. I know you're probably wondering who is joining me, and I convinced my mother that council will be short tonight, and she could join me and see me in action. This is my mother, Gina Linus, who's never seen me actually in action and doing my job, and she's in from Minnesota to help take care of my kids while I escape to Mexico next week. So just wanted to say who that was if you wonder. But good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, and City Manager. It's interesting because this was Jennifer's 1-year anniversary, and in my remarks, due to in our staffing since January, I have had the absolute pleasure of working alongside Jennifer, and she's always been a great working with her and knowing how we've worked together as a team, but being able to do that on a daily basis and seeing how amazing she is, how bright, how dedicated, how passionate she is for economic development. Not as cute as Norm Stevens, but I do miss. But the TED team is in incredible hands. And in the past few months, how we've all worked together seamlessly between our two organizations. I just get excited about what we're doing. I don't have a cute video to show about children, but if you could pull my slide up, that would be great. I want to give a brief update about our innovation district. As Jennifer says, things are changing quickly. We actually had our first committee in quite a while because there was a few things that had been in, is that the right? There's a lot of, there we go. Here we go. So there's the raw that was been fully closed and purchased by the city for us to look at. That 38 acres is being held by the property owner to develop as they see fit. That hope, the partnership will be that it will be complementary to the innovation district. We've had conversations with landowners all around about they're watching with bated breath to see what we do with this project, because they are really looking strongly of this whole TIF is going to be transformative to South Broken Arrow, and then we all know we'll further develop the pieces that have been delayed, and there's already been investment made by the city. We know that this will kind of seal the deal and put a bow on it in the next 5 to 10 years fully, which doesn't seem like a long time. But when you think about when this bond for the Innovation District was passed, it was 2018, and that was passed for $9 million for this. So we've come a long ways, and we still have a long way to go. So to give you a quick summary where we're at right now, a part of what we do with the Broken Arrow Economic Development Corporation, I'm going to circle back with you and talk more deep with you each individually about our strategic plan that we've launched in in order to increase the private investment, because we're passionate about matching that private and that public investment into the Broken Arrow Economic Development Corporation. Our strategic priorities have been identified in these top 5, which innovation district development is a key part of that for the BADC, driving the help leading the spear on that. Diving deeper into that is our what we said is kind of our mission statement of developing Broken Arrow, not only in the innovation district, but identifying key other areas moving forward with city, is what are some other opportunities for development beyond Creek 51, beyond innovation district. Because as I've said many times to y'all before in private, there is opportunities to develop. We just need to make sure we create the opportunity to develop, if that makes sense. And so our goal for the innovation district is to ensure that the innovation district is shovel ready by 2026. But I like to set a goal we can meet. So as part of this, as I've mentioned before last time I addressed council, is that we did win a top grant, which was a targeted opportunity grant from the Department of Commerce, funded by the EDA. Has 2 key main objectives: community site assessment and phase 2 leverage gap assessments. So it's $24,000. We will get an assessment by a consultant. I'm going to circle back to that a little bit, but we were different than everybody else who won it. So 28 communities won this. We are the only community that looks like the way we do for what we wanted. The other ones were industrial parks that they were going to come in and have a site selector, which is the site selectors are the companies that we work with in order to track the businesses. So they come in looking with the lens of the businesses who we want to attract. And so it was all an industrial park, and we're going to make sure that's not what the innovation district about before. So they modified their proposal to us. We interviewed 3, circled down to top 2, and then have picked one who really felt like they get what we do and where we're going with the innovation district. So they crafted their proposal instead of coming in and assessing a typical industrial park. They've decided that they want to pick 3 types of similar projects that we may want to be like as a lens to view this. So advanced innovation district, industrial quality of life parks. And they're also going to pick a regional comparison. So this one we've picked is actually very familiar with the Tulsa region, was worked on some projects, major projects in our area. And so they're going to also assess us from the lens of the regional, of one of maybe not a competitor, but someone, they're not going to put us up against prior. They're going to look at us against some other developments that would be similar. So they're going to come in and they're going to look through our lens of some of the decisions that we've made, and I'll circle grade us. They're going to grade how we've developed our plan. They're going to grade our marketing and our key target markets. And they're going to come back to us. They're going to do a workforce analysis, up us against some of our competitors, so to speak, operating cost analysis and high analysis. And they're going to conduct the site visit. They're going to then circle around and use the results to basically determine what is our true comparative advantage. So it's almost like we're being tested before we finalize the game, which is incredible that we can do this. We've gotten this grant to do it for free. So our next, as we kind of take these next major steps and start diving deep into areas we need to make a decision about. I make my notes here, apologize. Is we need to focus on layout, incentives, and target market. And as the teams work together, we'll put that kind of first initial draft, have them come in, and before we finalize it and make it a proposal and get everything approved and put a stamp on it and have a wonderful issue an RFP and start getting developers, we can kind of test it out with these site selectors. So I'm excited about, I know that's not what the Commerce Grant meant to be, but it's going to be incredibly beneficial to us. So that will be launching in the next 3 months. But before we get there, we need to answer some of these key issues. Today, the Innovation District, as I said, met, and we talked about these are some of the major steps we need to do. We need to identify key targets in our what type of developments we need. We spent a lot of time on this. It's really important that out of the gate, we define what is the end all goal of this? Is it 1,000 jobs? Is it 1,000 primary jobs, average wage? Because we need to make sure that we stay and accomplish that target. Because as we talked about in the committee today, you don't want the shiny object or the retailer that comes and tries to sell you because they see land and they see opportunity. We lose the focus of what the innovation district is in 90 acres, which is not going to create primary jobs. Now Topgolf somewhere else is wonderful, but we can do that. But we need to make sure that we don't do that. So these are some of the things that we're going to be outlining in the next 3 months. The committee voted today to basically create a committee structure where we dive deep with staff, partners, both the city and then key. And we created 5 key committees: layout and design, incentives, target industries, attraction and marketing, workforce and education, entrepreneurship and innovation district programming, and administration. Now you'll see that hits some of those things outlined in there. It's not a slide because that was decided today at 2 o'clock. So we'll be launching those committees this month. We'll have a ton of city staff involvement, EDC staff involvement, EDC board staff involvement. I will let you guys know of that. So if you know any people that would be really great to be involved in this process and those different committees, please let us know. We'd love to have them engaged. So there's some answers we're going to, the committee is going to craft is what does that governance structure look like? What is the process that we need to have to, how do we decide who is in that innovation district? What are the incentives that the city council would approve so that we can have conversations to make sure that we're within the bounds of what city council governance wants? And so you're going to have us coming back quite often and out doing these presentations and asking these questions for your approval. And the committees, basically the structure will be with the committee. The subcommittee will then present to the governance innovation district committee that the EDC board oversees and makes recommendations to the council. Ultimately, this is the council's property and this is the city's property. We're just working as partners to help be good stewards of it and make it be what the vision of the council is. So that's kind of a summary of where we're at. There's a ton to do. There'll be a lot of groundwork and definition in the next 6 months. 2026 will probably be moving dirt a lot sooner than that. But there's even some staff, decisions the EDC needs to make and how can we help best support this. But this is just the beginning. I'll take any questions.
Any questions? This little picture that's it's up there on the slide.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way we can get it like where I could see it up close? What is there?
Yes, absolutely. What my caveat would be, I don't want you to see it because it's not been decided by anyone. It's the one I thought it was, should I put it on there? Because it's a teaser. It was led with Larry and Half and Associates put that together when we were doing a presentation to the landowners. We're trying to basically show the vision because that land really wasn't ever on the market. So we kind of had to sell it to them to get them to sell it. And so this does represent what this kind of tells that story is you see different types of components of the story. There is retail in that. There's manufacturing. There's Class A office space in that picture. There's housing in that picture. There's little pocket parks in that picture. There's trails. So that in essence does capture what we're wanting to do with the innovation district. Where will we lay out, who we develop first? There's a lot of great deep conversations today. How do we develop this layout and this vision without defining it too much where we are able to be responsive to the businesses that come to us and say, I want to put my business there. So it's that balance of ensuring that we end up with what we intended to from a economic development goal perspective, whether that capital investment driven by primary jobs, average wage. But in the end, we are still though, we don't know today who's going to come. We don't know what's a brand new sector we could attract. We talked about some of the new sectors. We could build on what we have. When in the innovation district, we can grow businesses. I talked about this 4 ways. We can grow it through entrepreneurship and building our own. It could be some businesses are expanding, manufacturers existing that need more room and they're busting at the seams and they want to be in the innovation district. It could be attracting support supply chains of our existing major industries. And finally, it's attracting brand new businesses. So there's a lot of ways we can grow, and we're going to grow in every single ways in this innovation district. It's just being able to be nimble enough, but still ultimately end up with what the council's vision intended. And we achieve those economic development goals that then fuel the rest of the retail that's being developed all around the innovation district.
Let me color up just a couple of things for the authority. We had a great meeting today. Jennifer did an amazing job of kind of making a topic that on this initiative, very complicated, really very simple. And as I see it, after thinking about it earlier today, after the meeting we're going to be running parallel tracks. And the involvement of the council here is on several different fronts. Obviously, EDC is spearheading this event on behalf of the city council and the administration. They're going to need your approval, for example, the final layouts that you just talked about. So there's going to be discussions with the council regarding the final layouts. And then obviously there's going to be the attraction. With attraction comes the need for potentially for incentives. So therefore the council is going to have to provide guidance to the administration and the EDC on what those incentives are. And then there's going to be subcommittees that are going to be made up of staff and EDC members on these various areas that there may need guidance from the council. So besides updates, there's going to be involvement in specific areas. So as Jennifer and her team move this forward to where we know what the infrastructure is going to look like, what the governance of the entity is going to be, the attractions, council is going to have input all along the way, then ultimately going to have to come back to the city with regard to planning and zoning, and eventually if there's any economic development agreements.
Thank you. Very
It's
exciting.
exciting. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, remarks from governing body members.
Something I forgot to say earlier, I don't know if it applies in this meeting, but I'll just say the sidewalks on New Orleans. I've become the hashtag sidewalk stalker because I stop and take pictures and I need to post about it, but they're coming along really fast and it's really, really
You didn't put your
nice.
initials on it, did you?
That's what I actually
You can, though. We
texted
wouldn't
them
have,
and said,
any of the
I
council members want
really,
to put it down
I
there. just
really
come on.
want to put my initials in one of these sidewalks. I mean, I'll just put my thumbprint. No one will know, except you all that are
Yeah. And
here.
everyone that's watching.
But y'all, everyone, and I think I'm wondering if the people working, if they're like, who is this chick in the Jeep? Because she like keeps stopping and taking, they probably think I'm like stalking one of them, but I'm not. It's the sidewalks. So great job. It's looking great. Yes.
Right.
Get your hard hat. Get after
Yes.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Any remarks from city manager?
Said enough tonight. All good stuff.
There is no executive session. We have a motion and a second. Roll call. We are adjourned.
Exciting stuff.